What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. We are so close to the 2025 NFL Draft. So thought we'd do this one more time. We had Drew from Couch Potato GM last year on Draftmas Eve do a little 2-round mock draft. That was a lot of fun. So figured we'd do it again, but this time Juice is joining us. Juice, if you want a quick introduction for the people, plug all your stuff, and
Sure.
yeah, the floor
Sure,
is
sure.
yours.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Jake.
Of
I
course.
actually wanted to join you and Drew, just the schedules, obviously, around that time. Obviously, always a bit challenging, but really looking forward to this evening's 2-round mock draft. CPGM Juice, Couch Potato General Manager Jake. We met eons ago, right?
Yeah.
And it just seems like it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it's been quite some time now. And of course, Jake has always supported our channel, which is again Couch Potato General Manager on YouTube, and just wanted to return that favor. Certainly, always enjoy your insight and you supporting us on the channel. So definitely wanted to show you some love here on Draftmas Eve.
Well, I appreciate that, and this is going to be fun. I really enjoy your insights as well over there. So if you guys aren't subbed over there, you should be. Maybe even simply because of they do every team mock draft leading up to draft season, and also they're always posting the 1v1 Senior Bowl clips. So if you haven't seen them yet because of those, boy, you're missing out because yeah, those things pick up steam and they really do a great job of kind of kicking off draft season for me. I love going to rewatch those. So
Appreciate it.
yeah, let's dive in, shall we? We got two
Absolutely.
rounds to
Yep.
roll through, so this will be really good. There's a lot. DJ just dropped his mock draft, Juice. I don't know if you just saw that or
I had
not, but
not. I had not.
there are some interesting players who did not make the first round of that thing.
Read.
Josh Simmons was one of them.
Okay.
Mike Green, another, which you know
Off field.
that's
Yep.
yeah.
Red flags type of deal. Yep.
Nolan, another one where it didn't. And
Off the
he's
field.
been all over the place. There's the
Sure.
8, the teens,
Yeah.
all that stuff, but very interesting. Omarion Hampton to LA and the Rams, not the Chargers, the Rams.
Listen,
Is
I've
a
seen
wild
that
one.
several times.
Really?
Now.
Okay. Well,
Several times. And interestingly enough, PFN, right? Obviously, we're looking at the PFF mock draft simulator.
yeah.
PFN has one where users can join in for free and collaborate and so on and so forth. And several times we've had users of the Rams actually select Hampton. So there seems to be some legs behind that, seemingly. Right. I like the battery of Kyron Williams and Blake Corum personally. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm also a huge fan of Hampton's skill set, his talent. So if they're looking for a bigger back with, a bit of an all around skill set, I certainly understand it. It wouldn't be for me. But again, I've seen it multiple times now. It doesn't seem like it's just way out of left field per se.
Well, there you go. See, you're saying you're not plugged in late. You might be more than me, as we were talking before we got going. I did see someone have the Rams trade up 11 spots to go get Loveland, which I thought was really intriguing for them. Talk about real positionless offense out there that they could be doing with him. But yeah, we actually didn't decide who was taking odds or evens before we got on, but I figured, we could probably hash that right now. Do you want to kick things off, or do you want the evens? Do you want the pressure of Green Bay's first pick at 23? With the folks in here in the comments, do you want that pressure? I don't know. You can pass it if you want it. Yeah.
Listen, just in the interest, because of course I know Green Bay is certainly near and dear to your heart, and I often look to you to get my insights with respect to how Green Bay may approach the NFL draft. I'm here to upset your viewers. That's what I'm here to do.
All right,
I'm
here
to throw a wrench in it. So
that's all right, guys. We can apply. We can apply some fixes in round 2 because I'll have pick 54.
Correct.
You can go wide receiver. They'll love it. I guarantee that. So that's always a fallback option. We can kind of take it predictive. We can kind of take it, you can kind of take it any way you want. I think tonight you can, if you're going to go a different direction, you can kind of go like, this is what I think they could do, but I'd like to do this. We can kind of play off any way we'd like to that way. But the floor is yours with pick number 1 then to take the odds.
Sounds good. And I guess part of the reason why I took the odds, less to do with throwing a wrench into Green Bay's plans necessarily, but my guy Cam Ward.
For sure.
We've been big proponents of him being the top quarterback in this class, going back to summer scouting. As far as I'm concerned, I think one of my cohorts at Confidential General Manager Headley, he kind of had Shador and Cam neck and neck. But as the season progressed, Cam started to separate himself. I think when folks started to get a sense of the type of leader he is throughout this pre-draft process, all of the rave reviews coming out of Miami. Of course, his story is well documented. 0-star recruit. Run first, run heavy offense, wishbone type of offense, right? In high school, goes Incarnate Word, sets it on fire, transfers to Wazoo, obviously does a great job there, and then really punctuates it here this past season. I don't think Cam gets enough credit for what he does pre-snap and his understanding of what defenses want to do. I do think there is some obviously definitive gunslinger in him, right? And you got to kind of harness it, rein it in a little bit, but that's part of what makes him so exciting, so effective at times. So in terms of playmakers, give me Cam Ward here for the Tennessee.
All right.
I think that's the way you get this thing started.
The Packers fans should be very, very familiar with the kind of the gunslinging, hopping with some footwork in the pocket, kind of let it loose, maybe a little too aggressive at times when you like. I think I can see some of that comp for sure. I can see, just some Kyler level controlled out of structure stuff to him as well, kind of like Caleb was a little bit last year too. But yeah, I mean, when you feel that times when he gets into the zone, like yes. We're full steam ahead. He's finding Restrepo. He guys up the seam. He does a really nice job. I think it would be difficult to convince me of anyone else to be the top QB in this draft at this point, just because I think there's still, as you said, a floor enough where he is, I think, controlling the game very well, as you said, pre-snap, but also showing like, no, my high-end tools can vault me, to some heights that I think the others just can't quite get. Maybe there's one other that we might talk about. Maybe it's just going to be a little bit longer, I think, for him. But
I hear you.
Yeah, so we're number 2 at Cleveland. I'm going to keep this pretty short as well. I'm taking Travis Hunter here. Mm-hmm. I know there's still some folks that maybe it's Shedeur Sanders. It just feels like at this point we would feel more confident than we are at this point. Like if it was Shedeur, it'd kind of be like, oh yeah, no, the draft definitely starts at 3. It gets really interesting with the next 2 if 2 QBs go off. It just feels like if I'm Cleveland, I have a hard time passing Hunter. One, because I think if he's focusing at wide receiver, he's head and shoulders above everybody for me, just in terms of like how elite the movement skills are. I just, you don't see a lot of that very often. And I don't take these names lightly. There's a lot of Garrett Wilson, a lot of Justin Jefferson in the movement skills that he possesses, plus the ball skills, plus I think underrated acceleration when he gets into open space that I don't think people talk about enough. And just again, so well versed in all the ins and outs of the game in terms of playing both positions, right? And obviously he could, maybe they play him at corner. I hope tomorrow night they announce him as both. That's what I'm hoping we hear, because it is truly something we may never see again. And I'm excited. Maybe he goes in there and says, yeah, no, this is a new culture in Cleveland. I'm going to set some standards here. I think maybe Garrett, maybe that's part of why. I know the money talks for sure, but maybe he's bought in because Cleveland said, no, we'll figure the QB thing out, but we want this guy and you to be the proponents of shifting this culture in Cleveland and getting back to where we want to be.
Definitely. I tend to agree with you in terms of opting for Hunter rather than the quarterback, because I just don't think this team is ready for a young quarterback, right? I think it's very important to set young quarterbacks up for success. Mind you, it's just not often the case when you're picking, top 2, top 3, top 5, whatever the case may be. Generally speaking, you're going to a bad team with a porous offensive line. Tennessee, you could argue dearth of weapons. Like there's generally a couple of issues, but with some expiring contracts looming, The fact that they just haven't been able to field a healthy offensive line, the specter of Deshaun Watson, like there's just too much turmoil for my taste as it relates to dropping a young quarterback. And you want to maximize that rookie contract. I think you're punting effectively on a year. I know we expected a lot more from this Cleveland team last year. Again, kind of, thinking maybe Watson regained some of that form. Certainly, we expected the Browns defense to play better, and it didn't materialize. It just simply didn't materialize. So I'm not going to force the issue at quarterback here. I'm going to take the best player in the draft. I agree with you wholeheartedly with respect to Hunter.
Yeah, and real quick before we keep going, welcome everybody who's in. Greg, Chris, Brandon Hallam's in here. I see y'all. So Turtles wants Emeka, by the way, Juice. He's talking Emeka round one. But Greg asked if we see him playing both ways right away.
So I think the groundswell for him playing predominantly on the offensive side of the ball began during draft season. Once draft season kind of really got underway. But I personally, to me, this kind of came down to which team he ultimately would land with, right? In my mind, it's harder to find quality defensive backs, corners, right? It's much easier to find guys who can catch the football. Not to say that it's an easy thing to do at the NFL level, obviously, but I just think that there's just more of a litany with all the 7-on-7 and the rules that support passing offenses. I thought finding a guy who can match up and be, a potentially a Pro Bowl caliber corner, right? Especially with those types of ball skills. There's some technique that he needs to clean up, certainly. But with those types of instincts and those ball skills, I'm just thinking to myself, you know what? I'm going to play him at corner predominantly, and then
that's fair.
Pick my spots on the offensive side of the ball, particularly when I get into the red zone, right? Where I can throw a back shoulder fade to him, where I could let him go up and, you know what I'm saying? Because again, there's that argument about, right? He's a jack of all trades, maybe not a master of none. We know that he has immense upside, but still there's work to be done. There's polishing that needs to be done. Sure. So that was kind of my initial thought process, but it really does come down to the team, right? And I'm not necessarily against him playing on one side of the ball or the other predominantly. Here in Cleveland, I need him to catch the football. I need him to catch the football personally, in my mind,
for sure.
But I do think you'll have to kind of settle in where he's going to operate predominantly, right? I don't know. I just don't think it's realistic to expect him to play, and I don't think any NFL team would, a full complement of snaps on both sides of the ball. That's insane at the NFL level, right? But you'll have to make your choices. And ultimately, I would like to be able to leverage him in spot duty wherever he isn't necessarily focusing primarily. I need some quality reps, some high quality reps of Hunter either way, because he's just that talented.
Yeah, and I know Chris is asking, wouldn't it be easier to be a primary cornerback with wide receiver packages? Yeah, for sure. Just because I think, again, Colorado, I don't think gave him the widest route tree, on the face of the earth, right? So that I feel like, is probably something that makes the most sense. And as far as the corner conversation goes, the UCLA game in 2023, that was it. You go, yep, no, he's got it. It's over now. Just the instincts and the amount of space he can close in such a short time is unbelievable. So and it's a great point about what team you would go to. Like if you're the Giants, boy, I know you got a Debo, you had Deontay Banks come in, but I'd be playing him at corner if I were the Giants, right? You've got your one there. You can have the guy who can lock down ones on the other side,
and then you moonlight on offense. Right. And you create some consternation with neighbors inside the red zone or third down type situations, as Chris mentioned, as far as having a package for him. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But Cleveland, it was obviously the first one who came out and was like, okay, we kind of view him more as a receiver. And it's kind of like, well, with that corner room, it would be hard not to view him in that regard. And as somebody who has the 1-2 in a couple dynasty drafts, I am hoping Cleveland drafts him and plays him at wide receiver, because that would make things a lot easier for me in both of those dynasty drafts that are going to be kind of once things conclude. So I would be all in on that for sure, just because of that reason. But I think generationally unique is the best way to describe him. It doesn't mean I think he's the greatest prospect of all time per se. Sure. That, at least in terms of my scouting, it might be his teammate. if he joins Cleveland tomorrow night. But yeah, I think like him, just we don't see this, and it's truly awesome to see a player like this entering the league, because it's just it fires the imagination, and which is really cool if you
Yes.
have a creative coaching staff. Truly,
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It will be an indictment. It'll be an indictment if you don't, if you're not able to tap into, as you mentioned, this generationally unique prospect. Absolutely. I agree with that.
it would be funny who we're talking about drafting here, but as a team who might have trouble with these sort of things, but
Yeah,
I'm excited for him. I really am. I
definitely.
cannot wait to see him take the field. So, well, the Giants are up now as we're
The Giants are up now, and I think conventional wisdom suggests Abdul Carter with the
yeah.
Giants, going into free agency, getting Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. You got a pair of veterans there. I, I don't know if I want to see Russ anymore, to be perfectly honest with you. And of course, you understand what you're getting with Jameis, right?
Yes.
Jameis is going to move the football. He's also going to give the football away, right? I'm if I'm Dable, unless I'm out on Shador, I'm going with Shador.
Okay.
Right? To me,
Yeah.
that's how you buy yourself some additional time,
Sure.
at least in my mind. Right. And maybe
Yeah.
not as significant as it was prior to the rookie wage scale, because that's changed things. That you have teams that are selecting, a quarterback back-to-back drafts in the first round.
Yep.
That's happened
Yep.
here, the last 5 to 6, 7 seasons. So it's not out of the question, but certainly I think that may give Dable a little bit more leash, to be
Sure.
perfectly frank. And while Shador gets a lot of flack for holding the ball too long, a la Cam Ward, albeit he's not as creative or as elusive as Cam Ward, I think Shador has a certain level of competitiveness. Again, not
Yeah.
unlike Cam Ward, those guys, they work out together. 2 seasons ago, Shador took a beating, right?
Yeah.
Colorado could not protect. They could not protect. And the guy just kept getting up. He just kept
Yeah.
on getting up, kept on making plays, right? Kept his team with a turnstile of a defense in most games, right? Because of that competitiveness. And it just seemed to be in the most critical times. And the NFL is really a one-score league,
Yeah.
right? In the most critical times, Shador played his best football 2 seasons ago. You know what I mean? And they were obviously he had a better supporting cast this past season. There's nothing to me that detracted from the trajectory that he was on. I just think Cam Ward separated himself,
Yeah.
right? So yes, I saw a comment indicating that maybe the Giants trade back and go with Dart.
Yeah.
Potentially. I wouldn't rule
Yeah.
that out. But Shador is firmly QB2 for me, and I think that's the right direction to go in. I think his processing, albeit he'll hold the ball a little too long, I think the processing certainly is there. I think the touch is there. Not the biggest arm, not a special arm, but the requisite arm strength, arm talent. And again, I just think there's something to both he and Ward as it relates to just their mental makeup, right? Some of that toughness, some of that inherent leadership, especially when the game is on the line. These guys, they tend to elevate their play when the game hangs in the balance. So, and you can't coach that. You can't coach that, again, in a one-score league, right? Most games are coming down to the final possession or two. That's the guy I want under center. It's absolutely the guy I want under center.
Okay. So we're going with Shador here 3. All right. Yeah, and I think if tomorrow it is what the chalk would tell you at this point, if it is Carter, I do think Thibodeau is on the move. Probably have several suitors calling.
Sure.
You would have to think, you look down the board of teams that are going to be looking at edge rushers, right? Maybe San Francisco is a team that kicks the tires. Maybe Carolina, that'd be kind of wild. Burns goes to New York. Thibodeau goes right back to Carolina. So, some interesting storylines there. But yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would say is, maybe Jameis can feed Malik Neighbors so much he goes for 2,000. That's maybe the only thing I would like to see. And
right.
So
definitely 200 targets. Definitely
exactly.
200 targets.
Oh, we just need 10 yards of target. That's
right.
all. We just
Right.
got to reach that. So there we go. Yeah. I do like. I think the Giants are going to end up with a QB in some capacity. Whether it's they're waiting on Milroe in the second, I know Adam brought up trading into the first for Dart. Maybe they're trading into the first for Shador. I don't know, but yeah, I do think they end up with a QB at some point. I think New England, this made it a little easier for me. I would love to go O-line here. I'm not going to let Abdul Carter slide any further. Harold Landry signing's not moving me at this point. No. I know there's familiarity with Vrabel, and that's why he goes there. But man, Carter, we weren't talking about him to this level just because he played off the ball the year before, and it was like he's blitzing, he's look at how great the movement skills are, and then you watch him turn the corner, you watch him dip underneath the outside arm of the tackles, you watch him play through contact pretty well. You watch him play well on the move. The vision's really good, right? There are some edge rushers in this class who get absolutely lost. They don't know where the ball is sometimes, and Carter just is never really that guy. And for somebody who's 250, I think he does a pretty good job, sitting down and anchoring when he has to against the run, and he's got the explosiveness to cover some gaps if he needs to. So this, real simple. Vrabel gets a guy that I think he would, love to deploy in that defense.
Building block, right? I think that certainly will resonate with Vrabel, considering his tenure in New England, defensive guy, the position that he played, obviously, while he was in the NFL. So that makes a lot of sense. This has been one of the more challenging draft selections for me in mock drafts.
Yeah. Okay. I know Lee's asking, what about Sanders' best landing spot? It's a tough one. That's an interesting question.
I think he'd be phenomenal in San Francisco.
I was going to say,
I think he'd be phenomenal.
LA, you got maybe 2 more years of Stafford. You feel like that's, maybe the guy that could sit. I feel like his best opportunity is not having to go out there to the Wolves immediately. And I think that could be said for I think most of these guys, right? I wouldn't even, be angry about sitting Ward for a few games, but I think what the Titans have at least done is they've put that structure in place, right? Yes, it's Dan Moore at left tackle. I know it's not the best, but they went out and spent, right? They got Skaronski, they got Latham. They're at least doing the right stuff to put that infrastructure in front, and maybe Callahan gets the best out of Moore. Like there could be something to that, but I wouldn't be upset if all these guys took their time, which I think would be a good service to them.
Makes sense. I tend to agree with you as well, right? Ideally, you're not thrusting these inexperienced quarterbacks to the wolves. It's just the nature of the beast these days, especially if you're trying to maximize the rookie contracts as well. The sooner you get them on the field, the better.
For sure.
But obviously, we've seen scenarios where guys have been able to sit, 1, 2, 3 years.
Yeah,
and then have success, obviously.
For sure.
Green Bay, Jordan Love. So
for sure.
I still do think it's ideal. The ideal situation is a guy is able to learn how to prepare. It's not necessarily playing the game. It's about understanding how to prepare, right? And deal with the rigors of being a professional athlete, right? Now, you could argue that that's kind of that those lines are getting blurred with NIL and things of that nature, but it's a different animal. It's a different animal at the NFL level. The fastest adapting organism, as Warren Sapp used to say, was an NFL defense. You know what I'm saying? So as teams get a book on you, how do you adjust? How do you counterpunch? That type of thing. But I think when you go back and you talk about these quarterbacks who I think could have success most quickly, with there being no unilateral as it relates to the team, not necessarily considering the team. It is Cam Ward for me, and I think that's part of the reason why I go with him number 1 as well. But
for sure,
certainly for all of them, if they can sit, that'd be ideal.
Yeah, because again, if you're picking at the top, you're taking a QB, you might not have everything in place perfectly for your guy. So the Giants might be one of those where it's like, just let Winston. How about just sling it around for a while and then let Shador, in this scenario at least that we're working on, like just ease him in. Let him feel comfortable with the guys he's working with, and obviously you can get on the same page with neighbors, in camp and stuff like that. But you just give him some time. This is a difficult one, Juice, for sure, because of what has been talked about recently for this team where they could go. even before DJ kind of talked about it tonight, there's been a lot of talk about its offense.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder what your approach is going to be here.
Well, as you mentioned, most recently I'm seeing Genty now in this five
Yeah.
hole, right? I think
Yep.
very early on in the process in season, before we saw the bottom kind of fall out of the defense, we were thinking maybe another receiver. And then Brian Thomas obviously did great things, but Gabriel Davis struggled. Christian Kirk, injuries, he struggled. Evan Ingram isn't there anymore. So
Yeah.
you're thinking, we need to kind of rehabilitate Trevor Lawrence's confidence. He struggled. He didn't look good. He didn't look like he believed in the protection, in his decision making, in his abilities. So I understand the thought process in terms of let's make the offense more friendly. Let's make it conducive to his success. So certainly from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. I just think the defense was just horrid.
Bad. Yeah.
I think it was that bad, right?
Was.
And you paid Trevor Lawrence. He's the franchise guy.
Yeah.
He's got to figure that out. I don't think there's a dearth of talent. Certainly they can stand to bolster it, don't get me wrong, but I don't think there's a dearth of offensive talent here. He's got to play better. So, new coaching staff, hopefully they can kind of, again, as I mentioned, rehabilitate his confidence, get him back to playing good football, get him to a level that he just hasn't reached to this point, right? And actually reach those lofty expectations that obviously were bestowed upon him being the first overall pick several seasons ago. So, again, I've struggled with this pick quite a bit, but I'm gonna go with Mason Graham. I know it's not the sexiest. Ideally, I'm trading back because I think there's quite a bit of depth.
Yeah,
particularly in terms of interior defensive line. But if we're playing it straight, I'll go with Mason Graham here to the Jags.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. I think the one thing, if Genty is a Jaguar tomorrow night, I do think, DJ brought this up, and I think is the perfect way to discuss it. Like, you need to maximize every carry if you're picking a running back that high. And I think, that Jacksonville's O-line isn't the worst. It's not super, but you do have, I think, a play designer that I trust to get the most out of him, to get the most out of Lawrence on top of it, where I think you would feel maybe a little more comfortable there because, as you said, maybe the Genty pick is going to help build the confidence of Lawrence, where he's like, yeah, I've got this guy here now. We can together with us and Thomas and all we can really take this forward back to where, oh man, what year was that they made the divisional round? It
just
feels
a
like
couple
long
years
time.
ago. Yeah. They played
maybe?
the Chargers,
22?
maybe 3 years,
22?
maybe 22.
Yeah, 22 maybe.
Yeah, maybe 22. Yep.
So like, I think there's a way to get back there, however, I think there are a lot of options that they can do that, and Graham certainly helps in one regard for sure.
Yeah, just to kind of wrap up that point, Genty is the class, right? He is. Yeah. He's the cream of the crop at the running back position. There's no debate there, no question. I think in my mind, he's the only guy that I plan on using a first round pick for. Do I think 5th overall to the Jaguars? Obviously, no. Yeah. For my purposes, but it could very well play out like that tomorrow night. Yeah. I just think there's a drop off. Make no mistake about that.
For sure.
There's a lot of depth in this class. I think this is a very deep running back class. It kind of brings to mind, maybe deeper, maybe not as much high-end talent, but certainly deeper than just top to bottom than the 2017 class, which was incredibly deep. You got guys, former Packer Aaron Jones going day 3. Chris Carson had a nice run of it. It's a 7th round pick. That's Fournette, McCaffrey, Cook, Mixon, Kamara. Like there was a ton, Kareem Hunt. There was a ton of those guys, those guys. And I think this is a similar class. In fact, I think teams who aren't even necessarily running back needy need to come away with a back at some point because of the talent and the depth at that particular position. And of course, attrition associated with it. That's why
the Montgomery Gibbs thing is working, right? You don't have to, and I'm sure we're going to talk about Henderson at some point tonight, and that is the perfect way, right? Where it's like, you don't have to give him 25 carries, right? This can be a timeshare where he has the ability to rip off these big runs because the legs are fresh and
Absolutely.
throughout the whole season. So the committee build is what can work. And I know
Yep.
it's not as fun, but obviously Genty's probably going to carry the weight, but there'll be a lot of guys who can do one or the other in this class. So
Definitely.
okay, this becomes interesting for Vegas. From everything I'm starting to hear, this is offensive line, which is different, I think. And
Right tackle. Yeah.
maybe, yeah. I think because yes, they have Colton Miller. There's that weird talk going on. I know that they have JPJ. I know they've signed some guys here. They're kind of like off the street from the Bengals and all that. I'm going to try to build a best 5 here. And I would, again, Genty, going here, I just don't think, again, you'll be able to maximize it even as well as Jacksonville could with this team at this point. So I'm going to actually go Will Campbell here. I think he's going to go top 6, top 7.
Yep.
So I'm going to ensure that is the case here for Vegas. Probably something decently different here, but I do think, one, you help prolong, I think, the career of Geno Smith, and you hope he's there for some time. As protection. And I think, a unit that's got Miller, that's got Campbell, that's got JPJ, who I think we probably both have high expectations for in year 2. Like, this could
Certainly
be an offensive line to you sort of build around, and then, you feel comfortable round 2, round 3, round 4, go get a running back out of this class. And I think see how, you can probably get a decent bit of production from them.
Definitely. I tend to agree with you there. The offensive line is the most important position group.
Yeah.
Right. As you look at every position group on the NFL roster, I don't think there's a single more important position group, quarterback being the most important single position. Yeah. But as far as, a position group, I think NFL fans, it's not sexy. It's not always interesting. You know what I mean? Sure. But it makes a world of difference. You look at the teams that are typically playing late into January, into February, right? They generally have a quality offensive line, typically, yes. Right? Or if they don't, the injuries, the rigors of the season have kind of detracted from said offensive line. So I'm certainly with you there. Got to keep your quarterback upright, whomever that might be.
Yeah, it's either that or it's either they have a great offensive line or the magician number 15 is back there, helping them out a little bit, right? And making them look maybe a little better. So,
right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
definitely.
All right, the New York Jets, will they be going QB? I imagine no.
Yeah, I like what they're doing here with Aaron Glenn, and I've always been a big fan of Justin Fields. In fact, going back to that class, I thought Fields should have been the pick as opposed to Zach Wilson. That's actually who I had pegged for the Jets. But here we are, 2025. A lot of roster attrition, roster turnover here for the Jets, right? And again, another team where we were expecting the defense to be playing at a very high level, disappointed, right? They kind of came back to the mean here, underachieved. This team also struggled mightily offensively, right? They struggled to finish drives, put the ball in the end zone. Again, I think there's some considerable depth along the defensive line. And as I just mentioned, the offensive line is the most important position group, followed by the defensive line, by the way. Give me Armand Membo.
I love this.
Right? I like Fashanu, obviously, to step in at left tackle.
Yeah.
And we're going to put the book in there with Membo. Membo's tape is phenomenal.
Really is.
Truly phenomenal tape. He slots in at right tackle, and I think we're set. I think we're set for quite some time at the tackle position here in New York.
Yeah, I've mentioned this a few times when I've had the Jets and picked for them. Like, this is where I would want to go if given the opportunity to do. Obviously, outside of Carter, Hunter, right? Outside of the blue chippers, just being able to, for Aaron Glenn, create your own, hopefully, Decker, Sewell, right? Maybe they don't reach that level, but hopefully they're starters for a long time, right?
Exactly.
So you get that together. You have Tippmann playing center. You feel comfortable with what I think are the 3 most important spots on the line, right? And you kind of fill the other spots at guard where you can.
Yeah, Vera Tucker.
Vera Tucker. That's right. Yes, gosh, he's been injured so much, but yeah.
Yep.
it would be a great scenario for Fields to have this
Absolutely.
group. And if you got a favorite pass rusher out there in this draft, chances are Membu took it to him this past year. So,
In all likelihood, yes. In
probably
all
did.
likelihood, yes. Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah, just in terms of just, I'm not sure if there's a weakness. Right. I mean,
No.
what do you think, Jake? When I watched this film this year, in terms of movement ability, he checked that box. In terms of, that nastiness, that willingness to finish, he checked
Yeah.
that box. I thought hands, anchor, everything seemed to be working. So is there a particular area of his game you think he's going to need to improve?
Maybe he opens that outside foot a little too early.
Sure.
That's about all I can think of off the top of my head, because otherwise you're just because obviously, PFF and others, had listed Membu around 315, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think for a long time you watch him, you go, yeah, oh yeah, no, he moves like he's 315. Then it comes out he's 330 at the Senior Bowl, and you go, whoa, hold on a minute. Yep. He can move at that size. That's crazy. Yeah. I remember early, getting to his film early and pre-Senior Bowl going like, we going to talk about this guy with tackle one stuff if we have questions about Campbell? Like we probably should. And obviously Simmons is somebody we'll get to, but man, he, as I said, he took it to everybody, that you could think of in the SEC this year and was just outstanding doing it. I love this for the Jets. I love this for Aaron Glenn. I think, I'm not sure there's a better, again, outside of kind of fever dreams, this going better for them, truly. We're going with Membo to start this. So, I know Chris might be asking this as I'm getting ready for this asking you this, Juice, because I'm sure he's gotten my take on Jordan Morgan plenty. But he might be asking you what you think of what you thought of Jordan Morgan.
I actually, my assessment of Morgan was, okay, I see you doing your thing at tackle. I see you, but I would probably want to kick you inside. That was my assessment. Yeah, I think he can be a really solid guard for you. If you're going to ask him to play tackle, I have some question marks there. Definitely have some question marks there. From me, I think it worked out. I think I worked out, but I would have flip-flopped your 1 and 2. Because you know how I feel about Edge Cooper.
Yes.
You know how I feel about Edge Cooper.
So I think I watched your day 2 stream back, and you said Jake's gonna like this one, and I'm like, yeah, this really brought the spirits up real quickly on night 2 of like, oh, there we go. Now it's time. Sit forward in the chair a little bit. There it is.
Absolutely. So I think ultimately, I think ultimately it all worked out. But that's kind of my assessment. I think Morgan, he just doesn't have the requisite movement skills, I think, to be an above average tackle. I think he might be, not replacement level, but certainly an average tackle. Yeah. I think he'd be a quality guard. I do think he'd be a quality guard.
Yeah. And the competition's still going to be open for him. I know that they've kind of talked about, hinting at him maybe going back to tackle. We'll see. But yeah, The job's open for him. I know injuries cut short, with the rookie season, so I'm interested to see what he can do. And we're on to Carolina here at 8. I know Greg Rice is joking about how far I'm going to let Colston Loveland fall, perhaps my favorite player in this entire draft, not named Travis Hunter, so that's understandable. We'll see about that. John Schmidt already thinking, having flashbacks to Barry Sanders and Adrian Peterson if Genty goes in 2 picks. And you know what? That's probably you should be. Probably. You probably should be. So, yeah, we're not picking Genty or for Carolina. The more I think about this one, as much as it's not, I don't know if it's for me to go this route. I think I'd rather go a guy like Michael Williams. Just seems like more and more signs are pointing to Jalen Walker being the guy here.
I love it.
Move the guy around, maybe perhaps if you want to mug up, the front, if you want to play him at some linebacker. But the way he can cross face of guys changing direction off the edge in the A gap, like that's a player you can do damage with if you get him in the right spots. Right, I think there's still some technical work and some processing work to do if you were to play off the ball more.
Correct.
But if you let him go hunt the QB, I think you're going to be in a much better spot because I think that yes, he is a little bit smaller for sure, but I think you're getting a much more juiced up version of the Nolan Smiths, the Hassan Reddicks, that are
Hmm.
kind of teetering on that, am I a linebacker? Am I an edge rusher?
Hmm.
But I think it's something that makes sense. And obviously Brugler and company are very high on the player, right? When you talk to kind of the main guys in the draft space, and it's understandable when you turn it on, you go, the movement skills are top notch.
Yeah, it's interesting to kind of see the national draft analysts, I think, catch up on Jalen Walker. I think
Yeah, I
one
think
of my
other than
cohorts.
Brugler, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think one of my cohorts, CPG Headley, he's going back to summer scouting. We're talking June of last year is when he put Walker on my radar, and he was like, Walker, this is the name that's going to continuously climb as we get closer and closer to the 2025 NFL draft. He's the guy who's going to climb because not solely because of that versatility, right? Because there's good film him playing off ball, but
yeah,
obviously the name of the game at the next level is affecting the passer, and he's got it. He's got it. You mentioned some comps in terms of Nolan Smith, Hassan Reddick. I think those are apt comps. I think those make a ton of sense, and he actually measures in a little bit bigger than Hassan as far as weight is concerned, right? He's a
yeah.
little bit more, thick as it relates to his trunk and his core. So I think based on the type of defense that the Panthers ultimately are going to deploy, I'd love to see him in that mugged up in that A gap from time to time, and then predominantly working off that edge. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah,
pick your spots, find the matchups, and take advantage of it because he's that type
for
of
sure.
athlete. But the pass rushing chops is certainly there. I don't. You might want to play him off the ball if you want to just maximize the volume of snaps. But I think
Possibly.
to your
Yeah.
point, where he's going to be most effective is when he's affecting the pass, when he's actually getting upfield and unleashed as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
Definitely, I love it. I love it for Carolina.
They need something
Yes,
on that defense. They need somebody to get after
historically bad.
QB. Need somebody to get after
Absolutely,
QB. So I
absolutely.
think they're hoping for Graham to fall there for sure. Like I think I
Which,
know I've
which is
heard.
another one that makes sense. You put him next
Yeah.
to Derek Brown, and that's trouble.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, it
trouble.
is.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the
New Orleans
Saints are on
Saints.
the clock. And we talk about Cleveland not necessarily being in the best of shape to accommodate a young quarterback. The Saints may be in a worse position, right?
Yeah.
Um, they have the albatross of Derek Carr's contract. They have a ton of aging veterans throughout the roster, certainly on the defense. Some of their better football players are, in the twilight of their careers. They're towards the end of their careers. Some bad contracts. So a bit of roster upheaval I'm anticipating over the next year or two here in New Orleans. A guy that to me, I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of the 40 or what exactly is kind of the driving force behind the fact that he is no longer considered, a top 10 guy, right? And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. But I like Ted McMillan,
Okay.
right? With all the injuries that they had in their receiving
Yeah,
room,
that's a big thing.
they don't have a lot of pass catchers readily available, and that size, or rather that movement ability at that size, right, with that type of catch radius, that's not common. That's atypical.
No.
You know what I mean? So I perhaps it's a little early for McMillan for some, but I think in terms of what New Orleans needs to do, which in my opinion is just a matter of just adding good football players. Again, let's say Armand Membo was available, I probably would go in that direction, right? We're going to
Yeah.
kick Trevor Penning in at guard, give him another chance. Obviously, he does very well in the run game, so
Yeah.
still floundering as a pass protector. But if he can just make a couple adjustments there, he might be serviceable, right? And
Yeah.
frankly, dominant in the run game because he has that kind of upside from that part of his game.
Yes.
But with Campbell and Membo off the board, I think there's obviously a few more tackles that I think will
Yeah.
come off the board here soon as well. But I probably would lean towards Tech McMillan. Yeah, let me go with
Okay.
McMillan here for the
All right.
Saints.
Nice. Yeah, I think the injuries certainly play a part in this for sure. Yeah, I think it'd be very interesting if one of the top two linemen, as you said, were here, and you could, again, obviously Membu's in that same scenario as Fuanga a little bit, where at least
Yes.
Fuanga's now got a year at left tackle, and but if you draft a left tackle, like a true left tackle who's played over there, there's some Kelvin Banks stuff coming out now about New Orleans potentially at 9, like
Okay.
gives you the opportunity to go back. If he weren't hurt and coming off a big injury,
Simmons
would be no
easily.
question here for the Saints. But,
Yes.
the injury certainly complicates it. But yeah,
Yes.
I think Tet has 2 things to fix to become an X. The first is realizing you're 6'4", 219. That would be
playing to the size.
Yes. Now, I appreciate that he's trying to win with footwork, because there are receivers who at times are trying to just use their shoulder and run guys over when they're in their stem. That's never going to fly. So I'm the very least encouraged that he's trying to use the footwork, but pair that more. Pair that with the hands. Pair that in be a guy who corners should be fearing to walk up to the line of scrimmage against. I think he can get there. The second thing is he tips his hand a lot when with that body language is telling you what he's doing, which I think, again, good coaching and perhaps joining a receiver room that's got one of maybe the more technically refined players, high floor receivers that we've seen in recent years in Olave, kind of showing him the ropes, and as the coaching staff would as well. 2 things that I think you can get fixed to be the X receiver. But I think those things, I think what may hold him back from producing initially, and where you might see some impatience early with the fan base of like, what's happening here? Why isn't this working?
Right.
If a team like New Orleans is doing that and they're being cautious with the others, and he's kind of the main guy on the field, there could be some impatience there. But I think you have to be a little more patient with him, because, as you said, the movement skills are unreal. It's not even just contested balls. It's like, giving yourself more advantageous positioning too, right? Jumping up and through the football, not drifting at the catch point like some definitely do when they're running. He does a great job of that. He can kind of work back to access space for himself. He obviously, has great control above the rim. And so all of that is impressive. And I think, as you said, he's sudden, and that helps after the catch. He's got good instincts. He has great feel for where defenders are when the ball reaches him. And I think that is going to offer him stuff, at the next level. Again, I think Dallas would be a great spot for him. You can be interchangeable with CeeDee Lamb.
Sure.
That could be something where, you give him some of those buckets early, and you ease him into a boundary role, which I think would be nice. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to ceiling and as you said, the movement skills for the size, he is tremendous. And I think a lot of Packers fans hurting right now that McMillan's going this early. So not pleased. And I know they're not about to be pleased even more here at 10, because this is
with the Genty selection.
Yeah, this is going to be Genty for the Bears. I think this is, if it's not Jacksonville, it's Chicago. Ben Johnson is probably simply going to say, look where I was. Look where I came. Where did I come from? What did they have over there? We built this O-line up. We traded for guys, right? That was our goal, to set us up for this.
Yep.
And I mean, there's a Genty video on the channel, folks. You want the detailed breakdown? Go nuts, because he might be a better prospect than Bijan, in my opinion. Which is, I can't believe I thought I would say that coming in, because
not this soon, right? Not this soon.
No, I did not think we were gonna. I didn't think we were gonna have another that quickly. But I mean, he was on the radar, right? Before the season started, for sure, right? In the running back class, because of how great of a season he had before, and then then he just decided to go nuclear.
Yes.
And it didn't even matter who he was playing. Didn't matter, obviously, if it was a really small school or Oregon, who basically he put the game on his back and really threatened them for all 4 quarters, made them earn that game. The contact balance, the bursts, the quicks. I think he can play with more quicks. I would like to see him not always try to run guys over in space, because of how quick some of the footwork is. Truly, like there are some times in a tight space, working as he's just kind of reaching that second level where guys are coming up just as empty as they could possibly be with him. And I think he showed his chops as a receiver even the year before, where I think he got more targets. So he's pretty complete, and he competes in pass pro too. I think the technique can get better, but he competes there. So there's really just it's not really a hole. He kind of got like the MJD D'Angelo Williams vibes to his game, where the low center of gravity plus the acceleration. So good.
Absolutely.
And I apologize to the folks tuning in tonight. But just tomorrow, root for Jacksonville. Root for Jacksonville, take him, and then there won't be any issues.
Yeah.
So.
If he does happen to get past Jacksonville, I agree with you. I think it stops at 10. The Bears are uniquely positioned to go and add a running back, right? We talked about that a little bit, right? You obviously see the talent, understand what he could do for Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, but there's some glaring deficiencies on the defensive side of the ball, right? They could stand to improve their offensive line. The receiving room is a little bit in flux beyond Brian Thomas. So, and again, I mentioned the depth of the running back class, right? The Bears, on the other hand, they may be a running back away, right? A competent play caller, which they clearly have now, and a back as talented as Genty could be exactly what the doctor ordered. The interesting thing about Genty is that we didn't even get a chance to really see his pass catching chops this past season.
I know,
right? Wasn't he on the watch list for the Blitnikoff?
I think so.
2 seasons ago from the running back position. You know what I mean?
I mean, so in high school, he had like 810 yards receiving in a season and like 10 touchdowns. It was like insane.
Yeah.
Look up the high school stats, folks, in the comments.
Absolutely.
Seriously. It's nuts.
Absolutely. He's the real deal. He's the real deal. And I think we'll get an opportunity to kind of see his dual threat nature a bit more, right? Obviously, we got caught up in the chase for Barry Sanders, single season rushing mark and things of that nature that he was the offense. He was the engine, clearly. But what he does in the passing game, I think, is going to be a significant boon at the next level as well.
For sure.
Sorry about that, Greg.
Yeah, Greg, I'm sorry. I get it. I get it. I do get it. Truly. And I think everybody seemed to be hard on him for the Penn State game. That just seemed weird to me. He forced 17 missed tackles in that game. Like, what do you want him to do? He got 4 guys in the backfield. Yeah.
He set the bar so high. And any quote unquote pedestrian game, and by that I just mean that he didn't put up gaudy numbers.
Yeah,
in
just 100
stat
yards.
Box. Yeah, it's gonna be considered a letdown. It's gonna be considered he's not all that great. But you see the body of work, and especially you go back to the Oregon game. Absolutely, absolutely.
Goodness,
yeah. San Fran up next.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go back to the trenches again on this one. I'm gonna go back to the trenches. The question is whether the offensive line or defensive line.
Yeah.
We went through all of the NFL teams, as you mentioned, doing 7-round mock drafts for them. And if I'm not mistaken, we took Josh Simmons. And this was much earlier in the process before we got the feedback about that injury and whether or not things were progressing in the right direction. And by some accounts, things are going very well. Things are going very well. I love Trent Williams. I don't think he's going to play forever, right? Even though he's a special, Hall of Fame player in his own right.
Yes.
I do think there will be a time where Trent Williams isn't part of that battery up front.
Yeah.
And I have a couple other question marks. It's the depth again. I keep on going back to this. It's the depth of the defensive line that kind of has me prioritizing the most important position group.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back to the well. I'm gonna go back to the well, and I'm gonna throw that curveball. I'm gonna throw that curveball in there and take Josh Simmons.
All right.
Again, we're banking on a clean bill of health here.
Yeah. I think maybe some people don't like. Maybe the Pack fans won't like this. I'd consider him at 23 if he's there. I would consider it. You got 2 tackles coming up with extensions.
Walker, right? The Walker replacement,
which I know. Chris was asking if Morgan was better than Walker at tackle, and I'm sure you're probably thinking. I would assume not, even though 7th round pick or not, but
Morgan.
Morgan versus Walker. At tackle, I guess I would assume is.
You got to give Walker credit. You have to in terms of the way he's developed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I've seen what it looks like at the NFL level with Walker, so I'm going to give him the nod. Yes, entering the draft certainly I would lean towards Morgan, right? Mm-hmm. But based on what Walker has been able to do, because it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter that Walker was a 7th-round pick anymore. He's
No.
demonstrated that he's capable. I think he's looking to cash in. So you're going to pay both tackles. You probably will prioritize Zach Tom. So as you mentioned, Jake, a tackle, latter parts of the first round may not be a bad move.
I don't think it is. And I think that they're going to be in on Simmons, Banks, and even Connerly, which I know maybe people won't love that.
Sure.
But again, if he's the swing tackle in year one, learn the ropes. I feel like,
get stronger. Stronger. Yeah. Yeah.
I know Simmons did some movements stuff at the pro day, I believe, at Ohio State's pro day or his own. I think
private.
it was
I think it was a private.
Was it private?
Was it? It might have been a private workout.
I thought he was shuffling and moving around, if I remember correctly. Maybe he wasn't going full speed, but was doing some things at the very least. And everything's been positive from the reports. And
it's a leap of faith, right? You're leaning on your medical staff to really do their due diligence and ensure that there won't be any residual effects. But a healthy Josh Simmons is squarely in the conversation as a top tackle in this class. I think that has to be your starting point, right? He's being depressed because of the injury, not because we think necessarily, or at least from my perspective, Will Campbell and even our guy Membo is far and away better than Josh Simmons. That isn't the case.
Right.
That simply isn't the case.
Agree.
So it's really the injury that creates the discrepancy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, definitely. Dallas Cowboys, what are we going to do here? Truly, I floated this out. Like, if Campbell were to somehow still be here, not sure I'd hesitate. Try to get best 5, make the improvements there. When the Cowboys were at their best in the 2010s, they were swinging and hitting it out of the park at offensive line. Banks, I'm a little hesitant on sometimes in terms of his play. I'm going to go with what I think might actually go down tomorrow. We're going to go Matthew Golden here. The 4.2 speed, sure, that's cool that he ran that. I don't think he plays that fast, but it's going to give defensive coordinators a little bit of like, oh no, okay, so he did that, and he's already I think a good route runner, winning with tempo. He can crush off coverage on the in and out breakers. He shredded Georgia twice. Just is shredding their guys twice. Like it is really impressive to watch. And when they finally decided, oh yeah, we need to get him the ball more, he's kept cashing in and cashing in and cashing in. Do I think Golden is on the level of a Harrison or Neighbors or maybe even the Wilsons and the Devonta Smiths? Not quite. But again, I think you are making him a very, very high end complementary piece.
Absolutely.
Next to CeeDee Lamb here. And that I think, and again, the flexibility, right? You want CeeDee to get some work done in the slot, like Golden can be on the perimeter. I have no real questions out there from him. I think he showed you against Georgia, on countless occasions that press didn't really bother him that much other than the occasional one, which again, nobody's going to be 100% against press coverage. So I do think, it makes sense if they want to keep, forcing the issue with the passing offense, and especially if they're going to choose between receiver or running back at this juncture with Genty off the board. I don't think I'm forcing the issue with another running back.
Sounds good. I agree with you. Again, I wouldn't be forcing the issue. I don't think you're necessarily a running back away.
Right.
Although this team could probably stand to take maybe 2 running backs in this class, right? That room, I think Rico may have re-upped. I'm not sure. But certainly I think there's more pressing needs, right?
Yes.
As it relates to the running back position. You mentioned Dallas when they were kind of at their height as far as the offensive line. I think it was both player and coaching, right?
That's
Position
true.
Coaching as well. I think that just kind of came together perfectly. And then, of course, I didn't agree with it at the time, but certainly they were kind of uniquely situated in order to take an Ezekiel Elliott, right?
Yeah.
Again, I probably would go with Jalen Ramsey, even DeForest Buckner. That's just me.
Yes.
But
sure.
but I think they were kind of uniquely prepared in order to actually do that, right? Considering the
Yes,
fact that they had all of their
for
building
sure.
blocks in place along the offensive line. You put, a back that as decorated as Elliott behind that, and obviously you saw what he did very early in his career. So, but in the same breath, I saw, perhaps guys not as highly touted, even a Darren McFadden towards the end of his career have quite a bit of success behind that
Yes,
offensive line. So it's always something that you got
yes.
to kind of weigh. But definitely, I don't know that Dallas is at that point just yet,
Hmm.
but their issues on the boundary to me certainly are a bigger priority as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think Rico went to Carolina, and they brought
Did he?
in
That's right.
Javante.
That's right.
Yeah,
They brought in
yeah.
Javante Williams. There you go. There you go.
So,
Yeah.
so yes. Either way,
Yeah.
two running backs. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah.
For them, as
Yeah.
long as Jerry's not telling everybody who they want, I think they're okay. I think they're going to be all right with the running back
Right.
situation.
Right.
If
Unless,
if if Henderson doesn't go on Thursday, somebody just got to mute Jerry. Just don't say anything. Okay,
right.
we gotta work the phones first.
I'm telling
Oh
you.
man, good times. Miami.
Let's see. Conventional wisdom says trenches, obviously.
Yes, sure.
This team needs to be more physical. They just
Yeah,
simply need to be more physical at the point of attack, either side of the ball. I think about their scheme. I don't know that Banks, although I think Banks is, worthy of a, middle of the
yeah,
first round type of pick. Makes a lot of sense. I just don't know that he's the best fit from a schematic perspective, right? Outside zone, getting in
sure.
space, climbing second level, that type of thing. I actually want him to be more in the phone booth. I think he'd be excellent at guard. I think he can manage at tackle. I would probably just give him an opportunity to play tackle, but probably best at guard. I know Duke Manyweather feels that he'd be a upper echelon type of guard as well. So I turned my attention to the defensive side of the ball, the defensive line, and the top guy there, I think is a
Oh,
handful,
yes,
right? He's an absolute handful. Certainly, there's some concerns off the field, red flag type of situation. But
yeah.
in a vacuum, love Walter Nolan's tape. There's a player that I'm probably higher on than the consensus that I thought gave him some work this past season. He probably come off the board before the end of the second round at some
Hmm.
point for me, but Walter Nolan, I think, is the direction I would go in here
Okay.
with the Miami Dolphins.
It's hard not to like the high end stuff with Nolan. Truly, I very surprised he didn't test based on just watching him move at the Senior Bowl, watching him move
Mm-hmm.
on film. There's
Mm-hmm.
just nobody with that type of explosion, change of direction, and all of the coordination while doing so.
Mm-hmm.
There's just nobody else that can match him in this class. I think there are a lot of guys who are dynamic and can be more linear, but man, watching him, on all kinds of curvilinear and more horizontal, slanting, working over
Mm-hmm.
different gaps. Like it's just different out there, and that would
Yeah.
be a very welcome addition. Indianapolis. I mean, I think there's a chance he's not available when they
There
pick, and
is.
that might make them pivot to other positions. Gray Zabel's been floated here, which I think is interesting. Athletic as all get out, Senior Bowl guy. Sounds like Chris Ballard to me, but since Tyler Warren's here, we're gonna make this happen. Truly, could be some interesting formations out there with Jones and Richardson and Warren, and you could really get creative. But what I think Warren gives you is a guy who is consistently getting better as an inline blocker, and is willing and gives everything he has in terms of that physicality. Combine that with, I think, he's not the most dynamic route runner, right? He's not going to separate purely with footwork, right? He's going to have to use his size, use that physicality, which I think he does well. And obviously the catch point, the in-air athleticism stuff, that is where he makes his hay. And of course, when he has the football, he can run away from guys, as evidenced from some of his Wildcat carries this year, as evidence that they're throwing those middle screens to him and letting him get upfield, right? There is a lot of that is really, really impressive with him. And I think he's the type of guy who can kind of anchor this receiving room a little bit. Him and Downs can do a lot of damage over the middle of the field. As long as you got a guy who can get them the ball. I'm still hopeful for Richardson. I would really love to see that happen. I'm hoping that that Mitchell, with all of the rare, I think, movement skills that he has, just continues to understand route depth and
Sure.
where to be at the right time. Because I think
Yep.
if so, that you can unlock something insanely talented there. I think again, this offense is in a great position for somebody to just kind of take the reins if you get a
Yeah.
Tyler Warren or a Colston Loveland, honestly. And so yeah, I think they'd be hard pressed not to take him if he were available here.
No,
So
makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense. It's a glaring need on this team in this offense. I agree with you. I agree with you. They seem to be, especially after what they managed to do via free agency, they seem to be in decent position in order for a quarterback to just step
yeah,
up and give them some level of consistency. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I guess when your job's on the line, you start to kind of second guess yourself. I thought they were
sure,
a bit early on Anthony Richardson. I would have liked to see Anthony Richardson go back to school, get some more
yeah, for
reps
sure.
under his belt, a la Jalen Milroe. I think he definitely could have used more reps.
Yes,
But it's discouraging. It's discouraging to see you kind of giving up on him at this point. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? As opposed to kind of really breathing confidence into the young man. It's a concern. It's a concern. But I think this is a significant step in the right direction as far as the roster is concerned. So good pick there, Tyler Warren to Indy. I am working in a bit of a vacuum in terms of some of the off the field concerns with some of my
yes,
selections, whether it be
for
the
sure,
injuries or behavioral type stuff. You know what I'm saying? Persona, that type of thing.
for sure.
Uh, I think there's a pretty wide expanse of potential outcomes for this next prospect. The Falcons obviously have been hurting for quite some time for any semblance of a consistent pass rush. I like some of the young down linemen that they've added. Of course, Grady Jarrett's not there
Yeah,
anymore, so you could I guess go back to the well, but Rook. We love the doorless at College Potato General Manager. I think
yes,
he'll
of
be
course,
a
of
fixture
course.
along this defensive line next year. Give me Mike Green, man. I think the
Yeah,
explosiveness and the proven ability to affect the passer is going to be too much for me to pass up here. One of the things that I was a little concerned about, just in terms of on the field, going into Mobile, going into the Senior Bowl, was does he play with the same kind of tenacity down in, down out, especially when it isn't
yeah,
necessarily a pass, when they're running the football, right? And on his tape, I didn't necessarily always get the sense that he was dialed in and playing with the requisite leverage and tenacity that he needs to be effective against the run, right?
yeah, yeah,
Take pride in stopping the run. Take pride in setting that
yeah,
physical edge. You know what I'm saying? And if you do that, that's when you get a chance to make your money on third and long. You know what I mean?
for sure.
But I thought he checked that box in Mobile. I thought he
Yeah,
played with a sense of urgency, and I saw that physicality, not just in terms of the one-on-one pass rush reps, but certainly against the run as well when they did 9-on-7 and full inside run.
yes.
I came away convinced that he's got what it takes.
Yeah, and when you're as flexible as him, right?
Hmm.
You know you can be the low man when you're setting an edge like that,
Right.
and when you can unlock the type of power that he can unlock. As you said, it kind of felt like it's just like, all right, just buy in a little bit
Right.
more to defending that run, and I think you're in a really good position to be a 3-down defender. I think it is Green or Michael Williams for this team.
Mm.
So I do think it's one of those guys would be my
Yeah.
prediction for them. So yeah, 10 out of 10
Yeah.
on that one.
The thing with Michael, whom I obviously you talk about setting a physical edge, he does a phenomenal job at that.
Yes. Yes.
There's no question about
Oh,
how
no.
his
No.
workmanship when it
Oh
plays
my
comes to running,
goodness.
stopping the run.
Yeah.
It's we didn't get a chance to see him take that next step in terms of being a pass rusher. We just
Yeah.
didn't. The injuries, I think it's there. I think it's there. And as
I
I
would
was
agree.
kind of doing my film study, I was watching him and Shamar Stewart, and I watched Shamar Stewart, and I went back to Michael, and I'm like, if I could just combine those two, right? Because they
So
have
true.
they have all the measurables, right? They have
Yes.
the physical tools, the stuff that you can't necessarily teach, right?
Yeah.
Stewart clearly has a certain level of explosion that Michael doesn't have, but Michael's hands are significantly better than Stewart's,
Yeah.
right? And if you could just combine those two things, now we're talking about, after Carter, okay, here's the next edge as far as I'm concerned. And there may be NFL teams that feel that way about Michael,
Oh yeah.
and Shamar for that matter. But I just think that they're missing a certain parts of their game. I think Mike Green has fewer questions in terms of what he's capable of on the field. It's the off the field stuff that could ultimately torpedo his draft stock.
Yeah, definitely. Arizona's got kind of an embarrassment of riches here, honestly. As much as I would just love to take Malachi Starks, I think it's going to be late 20s for him just because positional value. They're not going to love the testing, which I think is a mistake.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Barron and Will Johnson both. There's I think Creighton's taking both of those guys, and I think Derek Harmon's another one that could be in play here. I just
love Derek
peeked at DJ's mock. I don't think I see Will Johnson in the first round.
Really?
Yeah, he's not there.
That injury, that toe.
He is not there. That is interesting. Well, I'm going to let that slide continue. I'm going to take Barron here.
Okay.
I'm going to take Barron. I think to Barron or Harmon, I think you can't go wrong, truthfully. I think Harmon would elevate that defensive line unit, kind of give them a piece that I think the others could build off of, right? Your Darius Robinson. I know Ojulari. I know you guys have been big fans of his, and hopefully the injuries can halt after this, right? And you can get back to that. And I know Zaven's been there, and he's obviously transitioned to full-time edge. So having a guy anchor like that would be beneficial. But I kind of like the idea of Gannon getting really creative with guys like Barron and Baker in that secondary. It gets interesting because obviously Garrett Williams is there. I think that's the right name, the Syracuse guy.
Yep.
And he's obviously done well in the slot. And so now you have some interchangeable pieces, I think, that can make the secondary really intriguing. And then you can go capitalize on day two on the defensive line, where I think it's a little deeper.
Right.
For me.
I tend to agree with you in terms of, position scarcity, right?
Yeah.
My only question on this one, and Barron's a terrific player, put together a phenomenal season.
Yeah.
Is size.
Yes,
I kind of want a little bit more size in the secondary, particularly on the boundary, right? I like Garrett Williams. He's a guy that we kind of really liked his film coming out of Syracuse. Max Melton.
Greg, I got bad news. I think the Packers think he's got too short arms and he's too small. I don't think they're going to pick him. I don't think they're picking him, Greg.
Yeah.
I don't think they're picking him.
Yeah. So that would be my only
concern.
Right.
I'm going to ease your concern, Greg.
You're preparing him for it now.
Yeah.
The evening before, just prepare yourself for it, right? So no, that's very kind of you, Jake. That's my only, I guess knock on the selection for the Cardinals specifically is that they don't have great size in their secondary. But just in terms of playmaking ability, IQ, obviously he's where he needs to be. The position flexibility, again, that interchangeability with Buddha, Williams, and Barron, it creates an interesting dynamic in the secondary. So he's a plus. It's just that you're not necessarily getting the size per se.
It could go well, and he could, in the Gannon scheme where there's some quarters and stuff where you're more matching and you're away from, the line of scrimmage a bit more. It allows Barron to be in the right place. Yes, it could be a Buffalo Bills situation on the other side of the ball, right, where it's like, oh, we got all these guys who can play the slot well. Coleman, Shakir, Kincaid, we can't play them all. That could happen here. That could happen for Arizona. I will acknowledge that. But I do think Gannon is maybe one of those guys where I would go, I think I trust what he could do. Obviously, Fangio would certainly be another one of those guys to find the right spot for Barron. But I do think Gannon, I think, will have a plan if they go this direction to, I think, get the most out of Barron, perhaps at multiple spots. So
makes a ton of sense.
Why is it not going well, guys? You need to be prepared for this. You need to be prepared. Why is it bad that Will Johnson's still available?
I know the Packers don't typically trade up, but you might need to get aggressive. If there's a guy that you love, you might need to get aggressive.
Maybe. Yeah, it's true. Cincinnati.
A lot of work that needs to be done on the defensive side of the ball here in Cincy. But I'm going to buck that trend.
Okay.
And I'm going to solidify the interior of the offensive line, which continues to be a thorn in Joe Burrow's side. So give me Banks. Give me Banks. I mentioned it earlier. I think he actually will be a better guard than tackle. I think he can play tackle. I don't want to rule that out. But you do have a couple of incumbents already in place. Perhaps he's the long-term answer at one of your tackle positions, but I think as early as 2025, he can slot in at the guard position and you'll be just fine and really give Burrow a pocket to actually step up into, because the battery of Volson and Carmen and all, it's just been bad. Burrow takes too many hits, period. Right. And if you keep him upright, you're going to give yourself a chance week in and week out. I think, throughout the balance of the draft, we can continue to work on this defense.
Yeah, definitely. Seattle, I as much as am not in love with the player, I think they could do this. They could go Emanwari and get really interesting. I'm not going to do that. I think they got to get better anywhere on the offensive line, and I think Gray Zabel can fit anywhere on the offensive line, and I think he's going to go this high. It might not be Seattle. It could be somewhere else. It could be the Bengals with the previous one.
Absolutely.
For your Bengals pick, if Banks isn't there. That could be something they do. I feel like Zabel is probably going to go in the top 20. And, Seattle, obviously, there's still questions. I think Cross has maybe eased some of those, but Lucas and a lot of the interior guys, Christian Haynes did not have a good year when he was out there, but you obviously give him some time for sure. But I think Zabel elevates the floor of this unit, which they desperately need. No matter if he's playing center, no matter if he's taking one of the guard spots, no matter if he's, maybe you think, we might need him outside. Maybe a true Zach Tom situation here for Seattle. So
yeah, I like this pick a lot. And as you mentioned, could just as easily take Zabel 17th overall to the Bengals. Zabel was the best player in Mobile.
Yeah, he was.
There were a lot of good football players there, but just in terms of performances throughout that week, nobody eclipsed Gray Zabel. He was terrific.
Yeah, he was awesome.
I think North Dakota State has proven that they can, churn out NFL talent. But if you ever catch yourself scouting the helmet, right, Zabel then goes to Mobile. Talent level obviously no longer a question, and he was terrific.
I mean, it might be a scouting the helmet in reverse. Going forward, if Zabel's good, you got Mock who came out of there, right? Volson, I know hasn't been great, but he has hung around at the NFL level. It might be more of at some point, North Dakota State's got another lineman. I want
the pendulum just swings. Yeah, so, definitely.
Which is great for them. It's awesome that North Dakota State continues to do this. And I know Mason's here in the comments saying that both Schrags and DJ had the Bucs taking receiver. DJ had the Bucs taking Golden. I know they had him in for a visit. He's not available. That's interesting.
It is.
That's.
I've thought about it. I don't know that I've been going with receiver in the first. Maybe they're just thinking that there's a significant drop off, right, as you get into day two.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way you prioritize it. But for as explosive, and Mike Evans getting longer in the tooth, Godwin coming off of another injury, I certainly understand that. McMillan looked great, so I expect him to continue to grow in that offense. I actually think what's really interesting, if you go offense and it not be the offensive line, Colson Loveland is really intriguing.
No, I think he can stay on the board for a few more picks. I think he doesn't have to go here. We don't have to do that.
I think that would be really intriguing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They got to play some defense though.
They do.
And for me, it comes down to Starks, Campbell, and probably Will Johnson at this point. Starks is probably my favorite player in this draft. Since day one, freshman year, right? I was like, I got
Oregon.
Yes, I have the. I'm gonna have to send it to you so you can pull it up. I'm gonna have to send it to you so you can pull it up. But no, I love Starks, and I think organizations have a tendency to overthink the safety position, right? As far as positional value, they overthink. It's a passing league. What are you talking about? It's a passing league.
The funniest part. Yeah, that's the funniest part.
What are you talking about? Positional value. You know what I mean? And you know what? The most recent example that comes to mind is Detroit, which I thought they were fortunate, right?
Yeah.
I
Oh
would have been
yeah.
perfectly fine taking Brian Branch ahead of Jack Campbell. I wouldn't have batted
Oh
an
yeah.
eyelash.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have batted an eyelash, right?
Yeah.
Just
No
just look
question.
when you talk about the utility that these players offer a defense, the entire tenor of the defense itself, the unit changes when those guys aren't in the lineup, right?
Yes.
You talk about rookie season Jalen Petrie, right? I know they did
Yeah.
some schematic changes that
For
kind of
sure.
took him away from the line of scrimmage a little bit more recently, but you just think about how these guys can operate, and that's the thing about Starks. People have a tendency to pigeonhole him as a center fielder type,
Sure.
single high type, but he does it all.
Yeah.
Matches up with your slots, the tight ends. He can tackle in space. I think in the 3 years Starks has played excellent football at Georgia, there's been one half that I was like, okay, what's going on? And that's when Milroe just took it to him, right? There were some bad angles, or perhaps he just
Yeah.
didn't realize how fast Milroe was or whatever.
Which
That was the only game where I
fair.
saw from Starks where it was like, okay, what's going on, Malachi? Like, you're making me look bad. But those types of ball skills, that type of range,
Oh yeah.
Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore, like,
Yes.
just changes
The
the
Ravens are
complete.
laughing that everybody passed on him. They were laughing. I guarantee it. In the war, they're like, this guy might be the best player of the draft. You still want him? Like, what are we doing? Like,
What are we doing?
yeah.
What are we doing? I could certainly make a strong case for Jahad Campbell as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I just think they've just had an issue feeling healthy corners. Of course, Will Johnson coming off the injury, so let's go with Malachi Starks. Let's go with Malachi Starks here to the Bucks.
Okay.
Him and Winfield
I'd love
on the
it.
back end there is problematic for offenses, for quarterbacks.
I'd love it. Yeah. I mean, if I could go full Detroit in this draft, if I was a team in the teens that had 2 picks, just give me Starks and Loveland. If I had any semblance of need there, like, give me those 2 guys. I'll just laugh while you guys are worried about the position I'm taking.
Worried about position value.
I'm
Okay.
laughing about that. It's like, yeah, that's it
All
is
right.
funny to think about. It's just and Starks. The other thing was like, oh, he didn't test well, and then you get the next gen stuff, and people have been
And
begging
he's
for that
like
stuff.
the best athlete out
Yeah,
there.
it's like they're
Hey.
begging for the next gen stuff, and then they're like, well, he's moving the best in the drills with all the speed. I don't know the testing. It's like, come on now.
I don't see how you could watch that film over the course of the last 3 years and then be overly concerned that he's not a superior athlete. And as you mentioned, the next gens, that's kind of blew that whole argument out of the water in the first place, right? But the football speed is there. The IQ, the physicality, the balls, it's all there. It's obvious. This is not a difficult evaluation.
No,
Starks is
it
a
isn't.
very easy evaluation. You know what I mean? Amanda obviously, he creates a certain level of intrigue because of the physical tools, and then of course he had a very good 2024. But
he did.
Down in and down out, Starks is a better player.
Yes.
And it's not really that difficult to extrapolate from watching the film.
Yeah, there's no question. I think he, again, the McKinney didn't test that well either, right? And yet he played at Bama as a DB. He's got enough football knowledge, right? Yeah, and it's like he knows where he needs to be, and like it is, and he's got enough range. There's enough speed that he can play with back there. So, yeah, I just feel I don't know what it is about safety position that we don't like it for some reason. Even though I thought about putting up a Kyle Hamilton jersey in here, and I mean, you know what? If Starks is good juice, I think we gotta really force the issue. I'm gonna put both of them back there and go, hey, look what happens when you take some of these guys. Are we gonna have to have this conversation with Downs next year too?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
boy, I hope not.
I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not, because that's an animal. And I love Starks. Don't get me wrong. I love Starks, but Downs,
are we gonna do this next
animal.
year? We better.
I think maybe because Downs is closer to maybe like a Derwin.
That
maybe they feel people will feel a little bit different, but just the whole premise of wait on state, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't compute.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Loveland here for Denver. I think they could go running back. I know Ibuka was kind of thrown out there. I know Lee said that in the comments as well, but I think I don't want to get we got into a big spiel as we're about an hour and a half in and we're 20 picks in. I don't want to give the Colston Loveland dissertation. What I will say is truly, I think if he reaches, you lost me. You lose me. Hello. You got me, Juice? Can the commenters hear me?
All right.
You good? We're good? Okay.
Yep.
But I think Loveland if he reaches the ceiling, he can change how your offense operates. I think we've kind of the way he can blur the lines between 11 and 12 personnel. He runs routes like a receiver. He might be a more talented receiver than any of these receivers not named Hunter. Honestly, there's a couple reps where he's on the boundary and he's running almost a blaze out, and it looks really smooth. And I'm just really impressed. When I did kind of like all of his games for the past 2 years, I'm like, I really want to see who this guy is, and I've blown away. I think there's a chance he can attach to the formation in line a little bit and get after it. I think he battled with that shoulder injury this year, even though he maybe didn't need to do so. Right. And just I think with Sean Payton, he's going to treat him like Marcus Colston perhaps, and I think he can be the chain mover, helping out whoever they bring in at running back and kind of opening up lanes as well, taking on the ancillary pieces while he continues to refine the blocking and just be Bo Nix's go-to guy, truthfully. And just go get buckets for me. And boy, I think Denver fans, we gotta love this. And yeah, I think STM40 bringing up first-round tight ends, and I think that's fair, but I think there's a difference with these two. One, it's maybe a little bit of a down class, and you're not, seeing the elite receivers and maybe, elite tackles and elite edges, kind of populating
you're looking for pass catchers, right?
But I think the difference with these two is they can block, and it allows you to do both things at the position. The reason some have failed is because they can only do the receiver part. And if they're not Brock Bowers at the receiver part,
you got to be Brock.
If you're not,
you got to be Brock.
If you're not shaking dudes on slant routes, right? I think that's the problem.
We're taking the end around to the house.
Yes, exactly. Yes. If you're not him, then now I've got concern. Kincaid's a great example. Pitt's a good example, right? Like these guys, Howard, who just maybe weren't the requisite athletes you needed on the field to be consistent receivers. And so maybe Pitts can still do it. We'll see. Penix coming in, it's the best QB he's had.
Sure.
I think.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
And so, but that's where I separate it with Loveland and Warren, and even me more so for Loveland, because I've seen the receiver stuff, and I think it's truly excellent when he plays this position. I think he can become the Laporta for this Denver team very quickly. And Kraft is a great example, Packers fans, of like why I liked him more than Musgrave. Felt like Musgrave was kind of the one-trick receiving type, and Kraft felt more ready to try to be a Y tight end. And I think you're getting that with Loveland here. There's potential sky high. Okay. Sorry about the dissertation, guys. I know. We got to keep moving. I know.
No. I love it. I feel bad a little bit because he's not a Packer.
I know,
but certainly makes a ton of sense. I think outside of that back, which obviously there's plenty of opportunity to get that guy. I think this is probably the direction I would go in if I'm going on the offensive side of the ball here with Denver. So makes sense. Help your young quarterback out. Pittsburgh on the clock. Part of me wants to find the bookend to Joey Porter, right? I want to kind of lock things down.
Got some good options to do so.
I see PFF is starting to give Benmo the love that he deserves. Of course, coming off the labrum injury, I understood that. But as far as man-to-man coverage, best tape in the class, in my opinion. Should I do it? I'm gonna call it audible. Okay. Cam Hayward getting a little longer in the tooth.
Ooh, yeah.
Derek Harmon, man. Wow, they dropped him to 42. Okay.
No, I'm surprised. You
Yeah.
get D pluses picking him at 23 now if you go through this box simulator,
Really?
which is
Really?
nuts to me.
Well, we might get an F taking him at 21 because that's the direction the
Okay.
direction I'm going in.
Okay.
I think Harmon, and again, it's not the even man front that you typically would get down in and down
Sure.
out, right? They're a 34 defense. But in obvious passing situations, I expect him to reduce down, 3 technique, let him do his thing. Harmon's complete. He's complete.
Yeah.
That ability to consistently affect the passer as an interior rusher, it's we get caught up in the edge rushing. We just have a tendency, our
Yeah.
eyes tend to focus on, okay, who's bendy, who's explosive, but you think about, and of course, I'm not comparing him to Aaron Donald, but you think about just the consternation in the week of preparation that Aaron Donald would create, right, as an interior pass rusher. Chris Jones, of course, he moonlights now, right? You just find the matchup with Chris Jones out at KC. You know what I'm saying? But it's the quickest way to the quarterback at the end of the day. I think Harmon has the flexibility to play the 4-eye, 5-tech, and then again in obvious passing situations, let him get upfield, 1 gap, 3 technique. I really like just to kind of maintain that historical type of consistency they've had along the down line here in Pittsburgh. Clearing the way for Queen and Wilson at the second level.
Yeah.
Again, Cam Hayward, it doesn't seem to be slowing down, but certainly, Father Time catches up with everyone, right?
Yes.
Loudermilk is solid, but I think they can be better, right? Keanu Benton at the nose, I think they can be better with a Derek Harmon added to the mix.
And you might be able to interchange Benton and Harmon. Seen him take on some double teams, and I was surprised.
Eat some glass. Yeah.
Surprised that he could do it, and was kind of dropping to the knee like Tyleek does a little bit. And I'm like, wow, okay, so he can free up guys as well. That's really interesting with those 3 kind of in that 3-4 working the interior, like, and they have Watt and Highsmith.
Right.
There's your 10-win season, folks. I don't care who's playing QB. They're probably just gonna win some games 19-16 because nobody can score on them because this front is so dangerous.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're gonna stick with the defensive line. Let's break some more hearts for Green Bay fans. We got to go Kenneth Grant, Michigan defensive tackle. Very Harbaugh, very I think very Baltimore-esque of like, hey, we're just gonna back-to-back first rounds with this new regime. Go Joe Alt, Kenneth Grant. And that's about all I got to say. I think the ability at nose tackle, right, but the movement skills at nose tackle is what separates him, right? And I know maybe he didn't test how people would hope that he would have tested, right, because he was on Feldman's freak list and he was, penned as this guy who might be, Jordan Davis level testing at the size, right? But again, I think, it'd be easy to see him kind of, oh yeah, he's just the guy who takes on blocks. And it's no, like he works around them. Like he's got quick hands and quick feet with good synergy to work around. You could probably ask him to slant if you even wanted to, because he's really explosive for his size. So I think you really help this Jesse Minter defense very quickly with Grant, and you might even get a bigger step up from Dion Henley. Kind of being more freed up because Grant is working the defensive line now.
So, I do think he needs some polishing. Not unlike all of the rookies, right? All of these prospects.
For sure. Oh yeah, Pad level.
Perhaps yes. Perhaps a kind of a wider expanse as it relates to potential outcomes, right? Him not necessarily reaching some of that potential, some of that untapped potential, but he's very intriguing, very, very intriguing. And he's the type of prospect that you roll the dice on, right? If you want to consider it that, he's the type that you roll the dice on. Yeah.
Boy, folks are just watching their favorite guys just continue to come off the board here. Everybody wants to trade back. I don't know if we're going to try to put a trade through the works here. But yeah, the Juice, the floor is yours. The Packers fans are getting I think they're getting antsy now. Here we go.
Oh man. I am not one of those individuals who seemingly is out on Luther Burden, right? So we talked about the potential of adding a receiver. The question is, do we think Luther Burden is going to be, a guy that will be consistent on the boundary, can be the lead dog?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, but he's the type of player that I will, again, roll the dice on, right? I think there's enough.
Okay.
Some of the issues in terms of the quarterback position kind of depressed his productivity this past season. Are there areas of the game that he needs to work on? I think he can be a better route runner, but I don't think he's terrible. I think his release package is actually decent.
Yeah.
I just don't always see the requisite urgency or control, for that matter, as a route runner, as a tactician. Although that slot fade always looks like a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
I said all that to say I'm gonna go with Will Johnson. I'm gonna go with Will Johnson.
Wow, look at that. There we go. There we go. There we go. Boy, the chat was, I think, about to go nuts because it's really going to be Burden after all that. There we go.
I'm going to go with Will Johnson. I think again, assuming everything is on the up and up as far as the injury is concerned. Yeah. You talk about polish. Now, I will say, yeah, you got to tackle, man. I'm gonna shoot him. I'm gonna shoot him a little bail because of the injury. Maybe some business decisions were being made, but it was bad. There's some bad tape in terms of the tackling. Now, a healthy Will Johnson, obviously, when you talk about, again, feel for the game, understanding of route combinations, the requisite size that you're looking for. I know Green Bay has a tendency to place an emphasis on measurables as well. I think he checks all those boxes. The coverage skills, whether eyes on the quarterback or even in man, maybe sometimes down the field back to the ball, he doesn't always look the most comfortable, but I think he's certainly competent, right? Certainly when he has his eyes on the ball, he's terrific. He's terrific, right? Playing cover 2, quarters, cover 3. Yeah. It's a matter of when he has to turn and run. That's really the only question mark I have in terms of his pass coverage. For sure. But the tackling is my main concern. The only detractor here. But Edge Cooper is cleaning it all up, so don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry about it. He's cleaning it all up.
Cooper and Evan Williams got us, guys. We're fine. I think Greg, maybe in the arm length he is, but again, if they're not concerned about the injuries and really like the player, they went a little bit underneath him for Ja. So, maybe they're not thinking, that Will might be here. I hear the folks.
What's going on with cornerback number 1, CB1 though? Like, really?
What's going on? I don't think he's going to be there.
Okay.
I think the smoke recently about Maxwell Harrison being their guy, about reportedly getting up to 193. Oh wow. Which is That's good. Yeah, which is what, like, now it's like, okay, now we're actually in play. I do like the chat saying Trey Amos. Yeah, dude got a year with Saban before Saban ducked out of there and looks comfortable in everything. So I wouldn't mind that either. I think Amos, is certainly battle tested in that. If all these corners are here, I think that's a great problem to have, and I know everybody wants to trade back, but I think one of those really nice situation.
One of those 3, if you trade back and you get one of those 3, I think you're happy with it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Maybe somebody's coming up to get a falling Jahad Campbell, perhaps. That would probably be my guess based on who's here if they were able to move back. Or the QB, right? Maybe Cleveland's already, making that call. Right. Something like that.
Gotcha.
Packers fans dodging a bullet, perhaps some of them at least thinking about the 2 edge rushers that people have talked a lot about for them, and I've been on board of like, they would probably do that, but I think there are some sighs of relief in that regard. Okay. Minnesota kind of put me in a bind because I would have loved to have any of the defensive linemen that had gone in the first, the last few picks as well. This feels like the trade down candidate. I could see Cleveland making a little swap with them just to accumulate some more picks here, but I think, oh boy, I mean, corner maybe. Let's let Nick Emenwari learn from Harrison Smith as he enters the twilight. I think that's where I'd go. I do think if Harmon somehow passes Green Bay, I think they're way in for sure. Yes,
absolutely.
I'm not sure where else I would go. I know, there's been the talk of like, hey, why not just make this offense extremely deadly with Ibuka perhaps as well, which would be kind of nuts. But Yeah, I think Flores, with Emin kind of like close-ish to linebacker builds, could go, just go ballistic with some of the things he could do with walking him up to the line of scrimmage and just continue to wreak havoc. So
Right, right.
yeah,
Yeah, I think he's obviously a unique prospect, right?
yeah,
And I actually like it. I like it in terms of Flores, how he could potentially deploy Minawari. Um, I with Harmon off the board, as you mentioned, and on top of Kenneth Grant, I think I may go with Benmo just because of those
I think that's fair. Yeah,
man-to-man skills, right?
yeah,
I think bar none, Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, the whole lot of them. I think Benjamin Morrison has the best tape in terms of man-to-man
for sure,
coverage, right?
for
His
sure.
technique is impeccable. Press man,
Yeah,
all right, not just aligning in press and then trying to shadow, which drives me nuts. By the way, I don't know why you would get that close
yes,
and not try to get your hands redirect. But he looks like he's ready to go. Right. So if that labrum situation is good, yeah, I think might go with him over Menawari, but it makes sense because of the way you can deploy him in that kind of attacking style of defense. Those physical tools, and again,
hmm
he made plays. He found the football a lot this
yeah,
past season, so
he
I,
did.
I, I certainly understand it. All right,
Dana hopping in. We
hey
did,
Dana,
we did. I thought about Harmon Dana. You might hate me for taking Barron for Arizona, but that's the direction we went. We did that. Um, that's what we did.
oh
So
man, Dana
appreciate
Dana
you.
would have
Appreciate you
traded.
dropping by, Greg. Oh
Dana
yeah.
would
Well,
definitely have traded down.
that's fair. That's fair. That maybe Denver got aggressive and went to get Loveland, and maybe that's
There
the
you
trade
go.
down,
Didn't
perhaps
want to
that
take
I think
the risk.
could be
Yeah,
a thing.
yeah,
So
certainly.
yeah, and thank you, Greg, for stopping by. Appreciate you. Houston.
Houston. Okay. You mentioned the name. I was looking at Burden. I was talking him up,
Oh
but you mentioned the name that I think just makes sense, right? There's a
yeah,
certain level of familiarity. C.J. Stroud, Emeka Ibuka. I think Ibuka is the quintessential complement to a Nico Collins type.
for sure.
The Texans do need to improve their offensive line. I think they definitely need to prioritize that. A guy like Donovan Jackson, Tyler Booker, all those guys, I think would be potentially in play right here.
Yeah,
But I also think that receiving, it's just weird. It's just weird how it kind of breaks out the tiers, right? And where
yeah,
you feel comfortable taking certain guys. That isn't to say that there isn't talent at the position, that there's a certain
sure.
level of depth. It's just kind of a little strange. So let's go with Ibuka here. I
Okay,
think he'll be ready to go. I can get him up to speed very quickly, right?
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Rams could do a lot of different things. I could see them going Amos. I could see them going Maxwell Hairston. Again, this is again in the reality of Morrison's injury, right? Of like if I knew clean bill of health were moving forward like that, I don't think there would be a question.
Mm,
Uh, I think Campbell's going in the first, and I know the Rams have struggled to find help at linebacker. Jones was traded away, and I think with the unit they have in front of Campbell,
hmm
I think that helps his transition to the NFL because I do think he's still a step slow in terms of the processing speed.
hmm
Obviously, in college, when you have the actual game speed, that certainly
hmm
helps mask that. But in this
mm,
league where the linebacker position, I think with how complex it is, I think that's the struggle of like taking these athletic freaks in the first. A lot of times where guys are like, yeah, he'll just figure it out, right? He's a good athlete. And it's like, no, it's just not really all the assignments that they have to deal with. But I do think like Campbell's entering a situation with Fisk and Turner and Verse and all these guys in front of him that I think can help him out and make his path a lot clearer to QBs. You can blitz him, of course, and he can truly rush from the outside. I'm going to go Campbell here for the Rams.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. We talked about kind of this groundswell for Amari and Hampton to the Rams. Again, I like Hampton a lot. He's my running back too.
Okay.
But I like the battery of Kyron and Corum, and I think this second level of the defense has kind of been an eyesore for the Rams for an extended period of time. I think you can certainly go corner here as well. You mentioned earlier, perhaps at dropping a tight end into this mix, right? No more Cooper Cup. You get Tay Adams, so
yes, you do.
Obviously, we're not losing sleep, but in the advent of Puka, but defensively, I think the Rams certainly have to get better in terms of stopping the run, and I think Campbell is part of that solution. And then, of course, what he does.
They got Puna too. That's also going to help him a lot.
Yes,
Yes, that will help him too.
Yes, I remember. I distinctly remember Puna in Mobile all those years ago, and I know he's like 5'11". He's kind of got the natural leverage and stuff. Didn't test all that well, but just was making plays sideline to sideline. Didn't get drafted, but he's carved out a really nice career for himself. Again, it's not even. I mean, just because of how we are so plugged into the draft, you can recall that the fact that he went undrafted, but it doesn't matter. A la the Rishi Walker conversation that we were having earlier. It doesn't matter. Once you demonstrate that you're capable, that's all that matters at a certain point.
Yeah.
Let's see here. The Ravens.
Yeah, Dana, I know. I think we're going to have to play him outside. I think we're going to have to get creative. But again, the Gannon scheme, I think the Gannon scheme can do wonders for him. I think
off coverage.
Texas did a bunch of that this year, and I think that's where you saw him thrive a lot. And so that would have to be, I think, the scenario he enters, and I think it could be one for him. But I understand the criticism. As I said, Dana, when the pick was made, it could be a Buffalo situation of like, hey, we have a lot of slot players on one team, just on a different side of the ball. So Baltimore's going to find value here, Juice. Where do we think it is? Where do we think it is right now?
Where do we think it is? Indeed. I guess I think they have a fairly significant need at corner. I'd like to see them really finish off this offensive line, get it solidified.
Okay.
That's part of the calculus. But I also think with some expiring contracts, age associated with certain players, I think they need to get back to being able to, have that rotation of pass rushers. Right. Okay. So now we're in that conversation about guys are with some question marks, with some definitive question marks as far as Pierce and Stewart and Michael, I think is more hand in the ground than anything else, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Ezeraku, I really like the physicality that Scourton plays with.
Okay.
I really do. And when I think about these prospects, Pierce, Stewart, perhaps higher ceilings.
Sure.
And Pierce certainly took a good step in the right direction, but he's a prospect that I've been a bit lower than some. So I guess it really comes down, in my case, Ezeraku and Scourton, and I'm gonna do a little different. Let's go with Ezeraku. Let's go with Ezeraku. Let's lean into the production.
Yeah.
Explosive first step. I don't know that he's going to get the full complement of snaps right out the gate. We're in a position with Van Noy and company where we don't necessarily have to do that, but I think we can get some healthy pass rush snaps out of him, and then ultimately year 2 he becomes one of the mainstays there.
Yeah, definitely. Love how he can alter the tempo as a rusher, which I don't think a lot of people have that in the bag.
It's advanced
in this class, and that I think gives him maybe a leg up on guys, on his peers coming into the league here, where he can go different speeds, and that's going to mess with tackles. And I think that division doesn't want to see him coming in. Pittsburgh's kind of getting their sea legs under them with the offensive line.
Sure.
Cincinnati hasn't always been the best.
Yeah.
Cleveland's kind of looking for something like Ezeraku might be able to kind of tee off. I know Prince Capsaicin saying Amos, that would be a fun fit for sure. With Marlon kicking inside, then perhaps if you do that, which would be very them as well. But I think Ezeraku also could provide a ton of, like, I think looking back going, oh yeah, that was such a valuable pick. Of course they did that. Of course they did it. So yeah. Detroit, I think Booker could be in play, and they might just not even care about the athleticism and then the testing, like truly. But I'm gonna go Michael Williams. I think him over Stewart, because I think Williams will bring a little bit more of what Campbell will want. Like you go, okay, you see some signs as in terms of the pass rush ability, but you know that he's hand in the dirt, going to buy in defending the run. He already has. The extension and the pad level and the anchor ability against the run is already really good. And I think he comes in to kind of complement, obviously, Hutchinson and others in that room where, you create a fearsome front, I think, adding him to the mix here.
I like it. I think he is physically, he checks the boxes, right?
Yeah.
And again, I mentioned I love the way he plays the run. He has the flexibility, albeit not the most explosive. He has the flexibility to stand up, put his hand in the ground, 4 to 7 effectively, right?
Yeah.
I'm still looking for that next step. But here in Detroit, I think is a great landing spot because you're going to get a ton of one-on-ones, right?
Yeah.
You can reduce him down in pass rush situation because of that length and power that he plays with. He's gonna check the box in terms of being really stout against the run, which obviously Detroit wants to do. They want to be very good against the run and kind of funnel to the pass. And again, playing opposite Hutchinson, Liam McNeil, you know what I'm saying? He's going to get his opportunity. So I think this is an excellent landing spot for him. I think him going top 10, top 12 is asking too much. I think it's asking too much. But on a good team that's going to be playing with leads, he's going to get his opportunities. He may not be the double-digit sack guy, but again, I think he's going to be terrific on first and second downs. And I think he's going to get enough opportunities in order to get those counting numbers as far as pass rushing is concerned, and hurries, sacks, so on and so forth. So I like it. I like it a lot. I think the Commanders certainly could use the edge rusher. The corners are still there.
They are.
They're still there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gotta like what you see.
Yeah, there's a run. There's a run on the way.
It's about.
I'm
oh
sure.
no, yeah. It's about to kick off.
Yeah, there's definitely a run. There's
Yep.
a part of me. There's a part of me that wants to just go crazy here and add Luther Burden to this receiving room.
It's fair.
But give me Ben Morrison, man.
Okay.
Let's assume he's healthy.
Okay.
Again, that's kind of been the tenor of this mock draft. Let's assume he's healthy. Again, I think bar none. The fewer question marks, certainly in terms of the health with the Trey Amos and Maxwell Harrison. But I don't think there's a better corner in this class as far as man-to-man coverage, technique, ability. I don't think there is. So
I don't think anybody, and I don't think there's anybody who gave Marvin Harrison Jr. more fits than him.
Listen,
Period.
man, I mean, and you know what really solidified it for me? So you're watching him, and again, as I mentioned, one of my pet peeves is when defensive backs line up in press, right? They have a press alignment, and then they fail to actually even make an attempt to disrupt the receiver's release, right? Whether it be an actual physical jam, one hand, two hand, or just rerouting them. They just give a free release, which makes, again, no sense to me whatsoever. He also uses the boundary really well.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's an extra defender. The boundary is an extra defender, and it just seems like a lost art. So Morrison, to me, again, if the health checks out, I think he's going to be terrific. He's going to be excellent.
Yeah, I like it. As you said, the cornerback run is going to start going here. Buffalo, I think, would like either Amos or Harrison here. I'm going to go Amos, just because I think he's seen it all.
Yeah.
Every coverage you could ask of him, up in press, you get into that trail technique, you get into bail, you're matching in off coverage, you're in true zone. Just transitionally is really good. Maybe other than decelerating on the vertical plane might be like the only nitpick I have of his game. But like the intelligence is off the charts. He's peeling off routes to go get people. He's going to get the ball when he knows I see this route concept. Quarterback's eyes are going here. Let me peel off this route and go make a play. Like
Yeah.
about to say something.
You're gonna say something?
I am.
Say it. Say it with your
I would
chest.
take Amos over Will Johnson.
Mm.
I would take
You know
Amos
what? I'm
over
not
Will
mad at it.
Johnson.
I'm not
I
mad
think.
at it.
And
I'm not
again,
mad at it.
Morrison, not health withstanding, I think I could
Sure.
be a little reckless with those takes too. But like for me, Amos, when you watch him, just it certainly feels like he's had 5 years in school, which I think maybe be a turnoff to some that he's already 23. But like you see the experience show up everywhere, and all the different SEC offenses that came his way this year. It just felt like he was prepared for all the tests.
Yeah, the answers to the test.
He was prepared, and it just, boy, I think Buffalo. I think they get great value here. Truly.
Oh, absolutely.
I think they would love this to happen for them.
Yeah, you make a great case, and I think you're right. I think Amos certainly would be in play with Green Bay as well. I actually had an opportunity to speak to him in Mobile during the interview portions, and you could tell he's a student of the game. You can tell he's a student of the game. I think Drew had asked him, who does he kind of pattern his game after? And I don't remember everything off the top of my mind, but he did mention he's in Washington now, the former Saints.
Lattimore.
Escaping me. Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore being one of the players that he kind of patterns his game off or takes certain things from. So yeah, he was a good conversation with that young man. I think he's going to be a good one. And the Bills desperately need that.
They're trying everything. They're trying to bring back Trey White. They're like,
see,
we don't know what we're gonna do, and so
exactly,
they would love this. Is he up there with the Gonzaleses of in terms of a prospect? I don't think so, but like, I think in this class where you kind of everybody has kind of something that they're dealing with. I feel like Amos just doesn't quite have that, and obviously Hunter, I would say, doesn't. As long as he kind of gets that ability to kind of focus on potentially corner more, right? As we kind of talked about at the top. But like, man, Amos, I just don't you're almost looking for holes in the game. You're kind of like,
sure,
where's the catch? What's going on here? And it's like, no, he's just got it.
Yeah. I agree. KC on the clock here. You mind taking a look at the tackle position?
Yeah. I heard they had a call with this guy recently.
I did as well.
Taking
you got to get it back.
Doing that, like I think Kansas City has to get one, and I think they
got to get it back.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine this guy with Pacheco? Goodness sakes. Anyway, let's go to tackle before we.
Let's see. So they are listing Donovan Jackson still as a tackle.
They are. Okay.
I love the way Connerly moves, but he's got to get stronger. He's got to work on his functional strength.
Yeah, it's true.
Really elite movement skills, though. Movement skills.
Yes. That's why I brought him up for Green Bay. Sit a year, build up that strength, and like if you're gonna have him take over, you take over.
Yeah. Jackson. They have to get the offensive line situated. They definitely do.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm gonna do one for Spags. Let me get Harrison. We mentioned the corner run.
Yeah.
We mentioned the corner run. Obviously, Spags wants to dial it up. Siobhan Ravel, I think a healthy Siobhan Ravel, he's certainly part of the equation. He probably is already off the board, to be perfectly frank.
Could be.
But Harrison has some really strong film as well.
Yes.
Movement skills, upper echelon movement skills as well.
For sure.
They want to play man. They want to be physical. They want to be fast.
And they
he
want to
can run with
McDuffie
anybody.
Back inside too when they can.
Yep.
And this would help for sure. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are we gonna do here? Let's do this. Philly says, you know what? We're arrogant. We think we can turn Stewart into a tremendous player, and he could he might be able to do a little bit of what Milton Williams would come in, in the rotation and do perhaps. Yeah. If they go, hey, we don't want you at 267, we want you up at maybe 280. If that's what he played at, and go, yeah, can you reduce inside and get after the QB with that acceleration, with that power, like.
He can do it, but he wants to be, he wants to be at wide 9. Again, he's another player that we spoke to. He does. And he was like, I didn't really get that opportunity too much at A&M, but he said, just being here, being at that 7 and 9, I don't think I want to go back inside. You know what I mean? I can go hunt. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but I think he's definitely capable of it. He certainly has a frame for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eagles are going to do something here, guys. They're going to get Pierce at a discount, perhaps. I kind of have a few guys ahead of Pierce. I think like you, Juice, where I'm a little lower, but I still recognize the talent. But they're going to get somebody down here at 32.
Yep.
That we're like, what? How? Of course, sure. You know.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. We're on to round 2, guys. We made it.
We made
it here. We made it here, folks. We made it. We did it. Man, I almost said let's do 3 rounds, but I'm glad I said let's stick to 2 because I knew we were going to have a lot of great conversations about all the picks, and I was like,
little on the long-winded side, but
yeah,
that's par for the course.
Guys, we haven't had a show together this year. That's why we've just
true.
kind of
making up the lost time.
Yeah, this is our kind of like being able to finally kind of bounce some ideas off as well. So
absolutely. All right, so you went with Hunter, second overall. Obviously, that makes a ton of sense. Let's go meat and potatoes here. Give me Donovan Jackson. I'm going to take him ahead of Booker because I didn't at first. At first, I was like, no way he can play tackle. No chance. Right. I saw his first game, unfortunately, I think was against
Carter.
Abdul Carter. Right.
Yeah.
I'm like,
well, he can't do
Carter's
it.
out there at a
player.
9.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, there's no way.
Yeah.
Look at it. He can't even get out of the stance. But as the season progressed, he just got more and more and more comfortable. And here in Cleveland, I think they could use him at either position because I believe the incumbents at guard, Wyatt Teller, and I'm missing the other name, but I think they're both in the final years of their respective contracts.
Yeah.
I forget the other name; it's escaping me. But
Bitonio.
There you go, Bitonio, okay. Joel Bitonio. Okay. Yeah, they're both in the final year of their respective contracts, right? And dealt with injuries here recently, so we could try him. We could try him at tackle potentially. But ultimately, if that doesn't work out, I feel great about him at guard. So Donovan Jackson here to get the second round started off.
Oh man, this is how much Carter has gone to them. Where my mind immediately went, well, let's swing at Milroe. Well, no, hold on. We've taken the QB already. We've already done that. Hold on. Oh man, yeah. Jackson I was going to consider him. Dang it. But let's go Booker then. They need sense. Help. They need help there.
Oh yeah.
I think
they're not that far away though.
No.
2-3 years ago it was bad. It was bad. It was Thomas and then nobody else.
Yes.
With Smith now in place, I think they obviously have opened up the coffers a little bit and invested via free agency. Illuminor is out there, like he provides some flexibility. I think they're close. They're a player or so away for really solidifying their offensive line, I think.
Yeah, Booker might be the guy to do it. Maybe he a little bit, likes to be a little maybe too aggressive at times. Maybe be the one concern maybe for him. Maybe the foot speed a little bit, but again, we're in the phone booth. We're comfy at guard. I just love the physicality that he plays with and love the drive that you clearly just a lunch pail 100% effort.
Sure.
Just go take it to guys for 60 minutes, and he does.
Definitely. Big Cam in the first, first. Let's get him a weapon.
Okay.
I'll take my guy Luther Burden.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's just a weapon, right?
Yeah.
Just get him the football, let him go to work.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Have that built into your offense as we continue to develop Burden as a route running aficionado. It's what he does with the ball in his hands that is truly special.
It is.
Right. So in terms of, early success, I want to be able to get a playmaker to Cam, get the football in his hands, let him go to work. And then again, we'll continue to put more and more on Burden's plate as in terms of the full route tree.
Yeah. And I think you're joining a guy who has, I think, continued to master it in Ridley, where as long as Burden's buying in and working to be coachable, which again, I know, right, I get it. There's plenty on the film of Missouri where you go, man, is he just like not in it out there? And then you watch him get targeted in the Bama game and you go, I get it. Yeah, that's not great what I just watched their QB doing. Not helping him out at all. So yeah, as much as I like Restrepo's a really
Sure.
solid player in the slot, like this guy in the slot for you, Cam. I
Yeah.
think this will be. I think you'll like this one. I
Yeah.
think you'll like this one.
Yeah, I think there's definitely room, right, for considerable room to improve the crispness of his routes, the
Yeah.
urgency associated with them. I think his release package is actually a little bit better than given credit for. I I I just I think Cam is an alpha. I think he's a leader through and through. And I
Yeah.
think some receivers are a bit mercurial and temperamental, and
Yeah.
they're not always. I think Cam has a way of reaching his teammates. You know what I'm saying? Tapping into something with his teammates. So I'd be interested to see this combination. And
Yeah.
you mentioned it, having a
Definitely.
guy like a Calvin Ridley who obviously is a professional route runner, is a good start to make sure
Yes.
that Burton understands what it takes in order to be successful at the next level. Ridley's had some issues, right, with the whole
Sure.
gambling situation, lost a year.
Yes.
Having someone to kind of bounce that off of, and again, a guy like Cam, a leader like that, I think
Yes.
could work well for Burton.
Absolutely. So the Jaguars took Mason Graham. Very solid start for them. Am I right in assuming the signing of Jordan Lewis means he's playing in the slot? Or is he going to play in
Yes.
the boundary with Jerry Jones? Is the Jerry Jones thing? Are they going to leave him there? But I presume that they paid Jordan Lewis to be a slot guy because he's been
Yeah,
so good
I
at
think
it.
he's the slot. I think
Okay,
he's the slot. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
going Rebel here then
Mm.
for Jacksonville.
Okay.
I listen. I
I
know
like
you
it.
want to help Lawrence out, but man, Graham and Revel for first two. That's a massive help to this defense.
Yes.
That just what's there to say? They couldn't stop anybody. Truly,
No one.
it was rough out there for them. So I
No
think
one.
that's a massive help. 1-2 punch there to start this draft for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get my RB2. Give me Omarion Hampton. We're hearing
There you go.
the whispers that he might be, selected towards the end of the first round. I don't know that I'm going there with it, but
Sure.
um, there's considerable needs on the defensive side of the ball. That's certainly a thing. With that corner run though, with Revel coming off the board just now,
Yeah.
I think I'll go ahead and
Pivot.
prioritize my back here, my back of choice in Hampton.
Okay. There we go. I kind of and again, Genty would be great for the Raiders, but I'm not
Mhm.
minding this start of like, okay, Hampton's got maybe a little bit now higher of a floor of an offensive line to work behind.
Mm.
It's a nice spot for him, and obviously, yes, he could go tomorrow night for sure.
Sure.
But yeah, I think this is a really nice spot for him. New England went Carter, got some nice value there. I would love to take Connerly just to help them out, but I feel like Ursari's ready. I feel like he's more ready to go.
Yeah, physically, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
Just in terms of the power profile, another player that we got a chance to speak to in Mobile, thoughtful young man as well. Um, his stock was, I mean, the needle was pointing straight up, especially after the Penn State game.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah.
he was bullying those edges at Penn
Yeah.
State for a bit, but it seems that things have kind of cooled on him a little bit. I agree with you. He's to me he's more ready than Connerly. Well, while Connerly probably has a higher upside.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with the floor. I part of me wants to take Higgins for them, but I think we're gonna go Ursary for this team. I think it just can kind of. I want to keep building up May's confidence, and I think Ursary is going to give you a little bit more of that. I think again, Connerly would benefit from being the swing tackle his rookie year and building all of that up to where then in year two you go, oh yeah, no, we have it and we're full speed ahead.
Right.
New England, I think, needs it immediately. That's why they're being linked to Campbell, right? That's why, there was a part of the process where Membu was kind of the guy that many people were picking for them. So
Yep.
that's the plan.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Genty for Chicago. Not to keep bringing
Oh
that
man.
back, but
See, I wouldn't rule out Connerly here.
yeah,
You mentioned it earlier, giving him an
yeah,
opportunity to just kind of develop, get
yep,
stronger is worth considering. I could certainly see him going the next pick as well, right? Pairing him up with Fuaga
Yeah.
Do I? Yeah, let's do it. Because
Yeah.
Braxton
Okay.
Jones, I'm sure will be looking for a new contract after this season, right? One way or the other. I think they could stand to improve Braxton Jones, although he's
Yeah.
been solid. Um, if you give Connerly, an opportunity to get in that weight room, continue to work on that core and functional strength, the movement skills again, as I mentioned,
Yes.
the footwork, the ability to climb, the reach blocks, cut off, it's really impressive. It's actually
Yeah.
really impressive. You just got to get stronger. So yeah, give me
Yeah.
Connerly in this particular instance. The
And
Bears
I
again in a
think
unique situation,
which is what is really nice is if you're the Bears and you're eyeing edge rusher here, you can't lose both Pearson and Scorton,
right?
right? You only got one
Right.
pick in between you. You
Yep.
could lose Connerly
You could lose Connerly.
potentially. So
Exactly.
I like the strategy here from Chicago. Gosh, New Orleans, because I immediately I was like, oh yeah, Higgins round 2 because they would take defense, but no, we got Ted. We're
Ted.
not,
We
we
got
can't
Ted.
do that. We can't do that. But this is interesting. I'm not doing running back. I think we got too many. I'm surprised it's listed as a need. Honestly, I know Kamara's getting up there, but I don't know. That seems. I'm gonna take Scorton. I think they're gonna like the size a little bit more, right? They
Then
are often
Pierce.
the team that kind of goes with the trying the Peyton Turners of the world out there because of that
Sure.
size.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
went and got Davenport all those years ago. Cam Jordan's obviously been a bigger guy at edge for them for a long time. I think we're going to capitalize on Scorton falling there, which might have been what Chicago was maybe looking at. 41.
that is where I was going 41,
Okay.
but that's okay. As you
Yeah.
mentioned, with
You
those
have,
two edges there on the board. The
yeah,
other consideration was potentially safety.
yeah,
They have a few. They have a few
mm-hmm.
with Brisker coming off that head injury, missing the vast majority of the season. I think all of the safeties outside maybe one is in the last year of his deal. So Xavier Watts is a player that I would consider, right? Again, just we had our conversation about the safety position and just the differences that they can make and the incongruence associated with draft value. It just again doesn't make sense to me. But I'll go with Pierce. I'll go with Pierce
Okay.
here. I do want to come away with one of these two edges.
I like that. As a Packer fan, I don't like it. As a draft fan, I think it's well done for Chicago here. The Jets went Membo, and I think I'm going to help Quinnen Williams. And what I mean by that is I'm going to go get Tyleek right here.
There you go.
And I think
this
is Aaron Glenn, I think, is loving how this start could go for them.
Inside out.
Two guys who can, work inside out. Two guys who can obviously overpower guys, both of them as well, but just like guys who I think perfect guys to buy in to, I think, what Glenn will do. And I think Tyleek playing next to Quinnen would be, I think, a dream for the defensive line. This is exactly the type of player you're looking for.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I actually was eyeing him here to San Francisco, right? Again, sticking with that same kind of approach, addressing the trenches. Can we check out the interior D-line?
Yeah, absolutely.
Take a look at the edge as well. So Norman Lott is taking a climb here for them. Okay.
Sanders, West Collins. Yeah, okay.
And then edge.
Edge, you said. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Princely, yeah. Okay.
Possibly.
One more position, corner.
Okay. There still might be a couple guys hanging out. That's the one thing. I know Packers fans are not big on taking corner in the first, but if you want one, it can kind of dry up a little quickly.
Yeah. Especially day two. Day two is not the strongest.
And especially if you're a team with the size thresholds, right? And because the Parishes and the Kobe Bryants and guys like that, and Dorian Strong even are just not going to be guys that you're considering if you want, guys at the 190 to 200 mark. It's difficult out there.
Definitely. I'm gonna go with a little bit older prospect, but I love his tape. I'm gonna set aside the age concern here. We're in it for a good time, not a long time. Let me get Darius Alexander.
All right. There we go. D line
And that
starting to
isn't to
pick it up
say
4 in a row
right.
along that defensive line
I
now.
that isn't to say that I don't like Omar Norman a lot. I actually think he
Yeah.
worked very well, even man front.
Mm-hmm.
I I just think Alexander gives me a little bit more flexibility, bigger player.
Yes. Very much so.
If you are concerned about the age, then perhaps you go in a
Yeah.
different direction. But yeah, I like Alexander to come in
Yeah.
and help out immediately.
Yeah. Every situation is different, of course, but I go back to Fisk and Verse kind of being older guys last year in the Rams saying, yeah, I don't know. They're good. I think we'll just
They're
kind of
pretty
take
good.
them. Yeah, I think
Sure.
we'll just kind of take him. And the way he's, throwing the club move out there as like a 5-7 tech at the Senior Bowl is just hilarious. Just hilarious work from him. Just saying, yeah, no, I can do this too. It is so cool.
Yeah.
Whew, Dallas Cowboys 44. I've had to pick both times for Dallas. I've heard some rumblings about this guy for them that I think would be interesting, but I don't think there's any way that you can tell me to pass on a Matthew Golden, Travion Henderson start for this team. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm too big a fan of that start. Now, if there's a guy like a Jackson who somehow makes it down to this spot, like Donovan Jackson, I would love to do that.
Gotcha.
Is Bo maybe a little too light? Maybe got to build up that strength as well, kind of like Connerly, to where do I feel like he's plug and play for them at guard, or is he going to find a spot attack? I feel like I'm in a tough spot for them. Maybe Jonah Savanaia, perhaps, if somebody you want as multiple spot guy. But I just feel like this is. Boy, you talk about defensive coordinators having to go, wait, they did what just now? This is what they've done so far?
Yeah.
This is not good for
us,
That's
a home run for Dallas's offense. Absolutely.
Literally.
Those two selections. Definitely.
Literally.
Exactly. Literally. Literally. Score from anywhere on the field.
Yep.
Yeah. And they desperately need it. They desperately need that explosiveness.
And lead blocking. Just hilarious stuff that Henderson does. That just makes you a massive fan of his.
Indeed. What do we do in the first? Was that Tyler Warren?
That's
okay.
Warren. That's
right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, you know what? Let's go with Xavier Watts.
Okay.
Conventional wisdom suggests address closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
But he's an eraser. He's an eraser
is.
there on the back end. Another one of those players that seemingly is always in the right spot. And just just the sheer amount of ball production. He knows what the offense is doing. He has the answers to the test, right? And we want to create field position. We want to give short fields to your offense, get the ball so we can get it to Tyler Warren. You know what I mean? And company. I like Xavier Watts a lot. And I actually like the fact that PFF is showing Kevin Winston quite a bit of love too. He's been out of sight, out of mind because of the injury, but really good football player, excellent football player in his own rights.
For sure. This is a tough spot. I'm actually trying to figure out what Atlanta would do. Like, I'm almost tempted to double dip because you get a Mike Green who can kind of be, perhaps a little further away from the line, and then you maybe go get the kind of Leo type who's a little more, attached almost to the line of scrimmage, and maybe can kind of set an edge. And Landon maybe falls into that category, but I kind of think of JT immediately when it comes to that a little bit, where a little more heavy-handed, a little more, I think obviously not a super dynamic player, but somebody who I think uses the power well, and I think can help, early downs, man. Early downs.
Right.
You gotta win sometimes. You gotta
Sure.
win them.
Sure.
And so it's very surprised I'm double dipping, but I feel like that's, if they go Michael, then I'm like in on Princely in the second almost. I feel like I keep coming back to that, where it's like, oh, those are the two contrasting styles. They've kind of, loaded the kind of the interior last year, right? Dorless and Rook. So yeah, maybe a little unconventional. Jared Wilson could be somebody, right? They could need that as well. That just might have
Interior
popped
line.
into my head after I
Yeah,
clicked the
yeah,
button.
yeah,
That's fine.
yeah.
But I still am thinking about this though, for sure, as a
Gotcha.
possibility for them. So,
Gotcha. I think I'm either gonna be spot on JT or way off the mark because I'm not a huge fan.
yeah, no, that's
I
fair.
think the counting numbers kind of they played more games. Obviously, um, Ohio State was an experienced and talented football team.
Yeah,
Uh, Sawyer has his limitations, not unlike JT. Although JT, is both of them actually were very ballyhooed, prep prospects. But
yeah,
um, I worry about his ability to play all three downs with
yeah. No, I think
consistency.
that's fair.
Now you kind of made the case though, right? You're thinking more from a Leo perspective and
Yes.
what can we do on these early downs, contrasting styles with Mike Green. It definitely makes sense. So I think that he's one of the prospects where I feel like I just don't know. I just don't
Yeah.
know. I'm lower on him.
Yes.
But I have a sneaking suspicion that he may outperform that. And in the same breath, I'm
Possibly.
like, if he's as good as some people think he will be, I will be the first one to say, yep, I got that one wrong. I got that one wrong. I just
Yeah.
for whatever, I think it's just a lack of consistency. And again, over the
Yeah.
course of this last season, the counting numbers they looked good.
Yeah.
They look good, but I just watch him snap in and snap out, and I'm like, if had it not been for the fact that you play with all these studs, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. You know what I'm saying? And in Atlanta, there's some players that we like for sure,
Yes.
but they're all improving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're all improving. So
They
it's
are.
it's this really young group here, and I wonder if
Steady can get it done a little bit, maybe.
Steady can get it up. Maybe the
Perhaps.
thing about it is you got a lot of one-on-ones. You got a lot of one-on-ones. And again, elongated season. I think there were a couple of games. Certainly, you look at those Penn State matchups for the last couple of seasons where he was amazing, right?
Yeah,
And I was like,
seriously,
if that is the type of player that we're getting, okay. All right.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
it's for that very
But-
reason we're not taking him in the first round because you never see it again.
Yeah.
You never see that type of game-changing ability. So that's where the pause comes into play for me.
For sure.
With JT.
That is definitely a running bit that is that tracks, unfortunately, of like, hey, is he playing Penn State today? He's not. Okay, well,
Right.
might not see,
Right.
we might not see JT at the ceiling that we've
Right.
seen before. So no, it's fair.
All right, Dana. What are we doing? So we went Barron in the first, right? We went with Barron. Okay. Can we take a look once again at the interior defensive line?
Yep.
See what we got. I like TJ Sanders. I love Alfred Collins. There's West. I love Alfred Collins. You talk about two-down players. That's a stud of a two-down player.
Yes. Again, if Tyreek's off the board and I had the Jets, I think I was going that direction.
Really?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so because I think it's just I think it's straight and narrow, too much sense. I mean, Watts would have been an option too for the Jets, sure. But it's just inside out felt like the way Aaron Glenn would certainly approach it. So.
Yeah. TJ Sanders has some really good film as well. Obviously, he gives you a bit more in terms of the pass rush.
Yeah.
There's I think it was a 2023 matchup against Georgia. Might be the best half I've seen from an interior defensive lineman since Donald was at Pittsburgh. Like just a half of just against a better team collectively, right? That Georgia team was a better football team, and he dominated from the interior of the defensive line. But I love Alfred Collins. I really do. I really do.
It's hard not to.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. Let's go with Fred Collins. Okay.
All right.
Give some grease up there for Dana.
Yes. Okay. So we went Walter Nolan for this Miami team first. Oof. Where
It's
to
gotten
go
interesting.
next? Where to go next for these guys? One Florida State guy out, maybe another one on the way in.
Sure.
I
Sure.
think that's what I'm gonna do. Again, offensive line, I find it in a tricky spot, and I also think Miami, truly, their front office is so stubborn
Yeah.
that they'll say, "No, we're fine. We got
We're
Paul and we
good.
got Jackson, and we're
We're
good."
good.
And it's like you're not good, but if I'm gonna say, "Oh, this is something that might happen for them," I could definitely see this go down if there is, especially if there's a during draft Ramsey trade. So let's go.
Sure.
Yeah, let's go Zaire Thomas. So I think, to your point, Juice, sometimes when he's impressed, he's not always looking to reroute. He's almost looking to match where the stem is going a lot. And I think he does okay in transition too. I was maybe a little concerned about that with him, but I think if as long as he uses that size more in some press looks, I think he can hang. So we're gonna go that way for Miami. Double down on defense for them.
I'm comfortable with that pick. I actually considered him just a little bit earlier. I thought you might actually go that direction with Atlanta, right? Atlanta has some holes in the secondary as well, but I'm okay with it. You mentioned earlier that we capture the one-on-ones in Mobile, and he had some matchups against Tez Johnson day 1, day 2 that just weren't fair. It just wasn't fair. Right, Tez with that movement ability, no leverage, no pass rush, like it's just not fair. And some commenters were like, Thomas looks terrible, right? And we kind of collectively at CPGM we considered Thomas a winner because of the way he finished, right? The way he looked in team, the way he looked in 7-on-7 when there was leverage and actual football was being played. Now, if Thomas goes out there and dominates the one-on-ones a la Quinion Mitchell, okay. Now we're talking about a first rounder.
Yeah, because of the design for receivers to win. Hey, we have this whole field. Go find a way to get it done. And it's like, they're probably going to. They're probably going to.
Yes. When the field shrank, right, and that's typically what happens on the third day of practices, right? They do goal line one-on-one drills between the defensive backs and receivers. Thomas was a different player, right? Playing that boundary, understanding that there's certain leverage in place. And again, when it was 7-on-7, full 11-on-11, he was excellent. He was fine. He was the player that we've seen, be one of the better man-to-man corners in the nation over the last season, right? He kind of played all over the secondary 2 seasons ago, and that's when he really got on my radar. But I thought his film was terrific. Teams did not challenge him. They went away from him consistently, including Cam Ward. Like they just did not. There was no need. That was the roads were closed on that side of the field, to be perfectly frank. So I think that they're as fun and interesting, entertaining as the one-on-ones can be, it can skew perspectives, right? Because it's not real football per se. Now, again, Quinion Mitchell playing at Toledo
in a drill designed for receivers,
and he's just awesome at all right, first point off the board. Sure, done.
Check.
Exactly. But you got to look at the full body of work here to really appreciate Thomas, and I'm fine with him in the top 50.
Yeah. All right. I know we got someone joining asked about Shedeur being the pick at 3. And I imagine, the answer to this is very simple, right? I mean, it's Russ and Jameis. Right? Isn't that the simple answer? I feel
that's my logic.
I mean, I get it. Dart later, sure, that's possible, yes, but I don't know if you like a guy. I think, and again, obviously, I think this mock has been, some predictive, some I want to take it this direction, and I think that's I like that approach because it gives you a nice, mix of flavor, and obviously, mock drafts is kind of our just, whether we admit it or not, is our kind of way of passing time before the draft gets here.
It's the reality.
But it's fun, and all that. So, but I think if the Giants say to themselves, we like this guy, maybe it is Dart, maybe it is, they'll find a way to go get him. And I think Juice perfectly outlined, what he liked about Shedeur and why, he decided to go that direction at 3. And you just, kind of just not going to wait around. We're going to take this player. And I think, you highlighted the mental and physical toughness that he
Yeah.
displays. So,
Yeah. I think that's really what kind of, swings the pendulum for me.
yeah,
And you could make the argument for Dart. I think, albeit in a more competitive conference, Dart has played with a much better supporting cast throughout. You have a tendency to think about, Travis Hunter, obviously, and then, Horn in the slot, whatever the case may be. But Shador got beat up, man. He got really beat up, and he just keeps coming. And again, I'm reiterating some of what we discussed
sure.
earlier at the
That's
top of
okay.
this mock draft. But
Yeah.
one of the things that really spoke to me was the fact that in a league where it's a one score game, Shador plays his best football when the game is tight.
Yeah.
Go back to the 2023 tape. The second halves that Shador put up, man, behind a porous offensive line, was incredibly impressive, right? I think he has it between the ears. I think he really does. I think there's a certain, bravado coming from the Sanders family that may rub folks the wrong way. The commenter here may feel like there isn't enough separating them to take Sanders third overall, but I think there's some intangibles on top of what I think are requisite physical tools to make the case to take him early. And of course, D-Kid, D-Kid from our show.
Yes, of course.
he laments not taking Penix last year. Of course, I love, you know how we feel about Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors should have been receiver 1. Anyway,
for a few of us,
for you know what I mean? Yeah. But anyway, different conversation.
We'll get there. Yeah, I'm sure. So,
but he laments not taking Mike Penix, and Penix obviously different thrower of the ball, right? Just laser Penix, right? I think Shador has taken it 3 seconds. Steelers.
21 tomorrow.
Steelers, yeah.
Maybe. But
and it's one of those things. Like if that's your guy, go get him. Don't hesitate.
Yeah.
Go get him. And at the end of the day, I don't think Russ is cooked as far as I'm concerned. Let Russ cook is no longer the case. He is just simply cooked.
He's making he made a golf brand recently, went public with that. I think it might be done.
Transitioning.
I think
he's
done.
transitioning.
Yep.
Yes.
Which fair enough.
Jameis is going to entertain. There's no question about it. He's going to entertain. He's going to get Malik Neighbors those 200 targets. If you have them in Dynasty, wheels up. But he's going to throw a game away. He's going to throw a game away.
Or three.
Right? So
yeah, for sure.
To me, just understanding kind of, some of the understanding again that whole situation, the Sanders and dealing with the bright lights of New York, and just kind of being uniquely prepared for it, considering how you're raised and what you've been through, some of the adversity, and in the same breath, some of the fortunateness of your upbringing, right? If that's a word. I just think it's a unique situation. I think it would be the right move for Dable. I think it'd be the right move for Dable.
Yeah, it's obviously tough them looking back and like looking at McCarthy and Penix and Nix, even all three. It's kind of crazy where we're at with this QB class. If McCarthy shows something, boy, we got potential historic stuff on our hands. So like, it's probably tough for them to look back on that and go, we could have had those three guys and any one of them, and it would be I'd still be hard pressed to not think that at some point, as we kind of said, I think I kind of said this after you took Shador, of like they're gonna do something.
Yeah,
they're gonna do something. So
yeah. And I just wonder, what the thought process is throughout the league on Dart, right? I do have Dart as my QB3.
Okay.
Currently, Milroe is my QB4. Again, I feel like Milroe should have went back to school.
Yes. Yeah.
But I just wonder. I wonder, is someone going to get aggressive You know, you talk about the
I think
Giants
so.
trading back into the first, but
Cleveland.
someone could preclude that. So to me,
Yeah.
you're picking at the top there, unless you could certainly make the case for Abdul Carter. I get that.
Oh, for sure.
Travis Hunter might be the only prospect. If Travis Hunter's on the board at 3, all right, let's do the Jackson Dart thing. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do it.
From 34. From 34,
Yes.
folks, by the way. Not
Yes,
at 3.
exactly.
Yeah.
No,
Hunter
no,
then
no,
Dart.
no.
Yes.
No, no, no.
Yeah, I got
Hunter
you.
then Dart.
I'm
right?
just making sure because some people might be
to
like,
make it
wait,
clear.
what'd you
I
say?
appreciate that. I appreciate
yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
outside of that, yeah, I'll take my quarterback.
Yeah.
We've done the Daniel Jones thing. Give me Shador.
And that's the thing with the Daniel Jones thing. They took a defender first. It wasn't like that was very much to me signaling like a
Was that
this
Dex?
this really isn't
Was that Dex? I think that was Dex,
maybe
right?
they did take Jones first.
I think they may have taken him before Dex.
That's right. Never mind. I take back whatever I said. I still think it was kind of like we need to take one. We'll just take one.
Sure.
Type of situation. Yeah. Then and I think I understand being proactive in this scenario. Yeah. If so, Smitty obviously joined in as well. He said, what did Pittsburgh do? Juice got him Derek Harmon in the first, and I think you'd be very pleased about that one for sure.
I got you there, Zach.
As I know, Pittsburgh fans are staring down that possibility of Shador at 21, with just under 21 hours, maybe closing in on 20 hours before we
nice.
So Cincinnati, as we
Kelvin Banks in the first. All right, so I mentioned we're going to plug him at guard.
You did.
Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. You know what? Let's just grab Norman Locke, call it a day.
Okay.
All right, he's going to have to play a full complement of snaps, but quintessential 3 technique. Get him upfield, attacking the quarterback.
Yeah, I like that. Seattle, I mean, we could double up here, and I probably wouldn't bat an eye at what we're doing offensive line wise, but I'm gonna take. I think I'm gonna go Swinson here.
I like Swinson a lot, man.
I think they could afford to get after the QB just a little bit more, especially on the edge. I think you're hoping
great hands.
Yeah, and I think you're hoping that Murphy takes the step in year 2, right? And then I think McDonald would love to have a defense that can get after the QB. And obviously, this is kind of house money for Seattle. We got a lot of picks. Sure. We can do a lot of different things because we're holding a lot of cards on the first 2 days of the draft. So you're able to take swings like this if you desire to.
Absolutely. Colston Loveland the first. Do we put the final Infinity Stone in place here on this offense?
Well, there is that option. Certainly.
Let's check out the running backs.
Okay.
Scatterbull, Sampson. I know there's a huge Caleb Johnson hive.
Yeah.
Oh man, give me. I want Ole Miss Judkins. I mean, he's gonna play the Ohio State role, right? Obviously with Sean Payton, but Ole Miss Judkins, man, is we're gonna have some fun with it. I think the responsible thing probably would go, to either side of the line of scrimmage, but let's go with Judkins here.
Okay. Seattle, back on it again.
So we went with, who did we go with in the first? Zabel Swinson. Okay, got it.
This is nice. I like this. Lee coming back in just as I'm about to do this right before Green Bay picks for the second round. Seattle needs some boundary guys. They need a guy in the boundary.
Yes, they do.
Again, just prepping you guys, because then you'll be there Friday night going, well, we got Higgins. My expectations were low. You're welcome. You could maybe convince me of a Trey Harris here, maybe even Ioban or two of like boundary player who I think he's got work to do. Ioban does, but the tempo that he can play with and winning the slant and the go ball at the very least, I've seen him do that. I think Higgins offers you a little more. So, yeah, it's fine, guys. Man. We're okay.
It'll be all right.
We're okay. You never know.
Reverse psychology. Reverse psychology. Yeah. You got Jack Besh there. right?
Yeah.
You got Jack Best there for 54.
We're going. We're making some double swaps. We talked about this of like sending, what was it? Sending Thibodeau back to Carolina earlier with the like Carter thing. If we went that route, Seattle coming to get Pickens.
I heard
DK
Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry's on that. The Packers going after Pickens would be, that would hurt more than anybody else getting picked in front of Green Bay. Okay, that would hurt worse. There's just I can't imagine it. They had a meeting with they obviously met with Pickens pre-draft, and we're getting off the rails again, but we're going off in different directions, of course.
Here we go.
But like I don't think that's the guy you're like, oh, that's the guy we like to add him. That attitude to the room, definitely. That's who we want. It's like, to me,
that's the missing piece.
Yeah, with Green Bay included in this, to me, it feels very much. Andrew Brandt has talked about this before of like teams, agents going, hey, can we say you're interested?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Sure, you want to help drive up the price? Sure, you can tell people that we're interested. I feel like that might have happened with Kupp. There was talk about Kupp going to Green Bay. Yeah, kind of like, no, you can say we're interested for sure.
Okay.
Feels like they've done that a lot. Beckham, right, when he kind of went to LA and did that. So I think there's certainly that involved there.
Okay.
The Bucks could do something I'd really like, honestly, after
what are you thinking? What are you thinking after Starks?
There's all that talk about, Campbell potentially being the pick, and you got a guy who also has some pretty good speed and run and chase and maybe do some blitzing too. Obviously, it's your pick, so but it would be a lot of fun.
It absolutely was a consideration of mine. It definitely was a consideration of mine. I keep on saying Levante David can't play forever, but I've been saying that for about 5 years now.
Yeah, it's kind of like Bobby Wagner. Like, are these guys? Yeah, guess not.
yeah. And I you got to make a case for David as a Hall of Famer, man. I don't know that people view, the masses may not view him as that, but I just think just the sheer level of productivity. He's got the ring. You know what I'm saying? Like he's been a mainstay for so long and has been playing at such a high level for so long. Definitely need to be in that consideration. So yes, Schlesinger was a consideration. You know what my issue with him is? Not physical enough for my taste.
Oh yeah, no.
Like I want.
Yeah. No,
he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I think what he does, particularly sideline to sideline and coverage, is excellent. I don't see him necessarily getting out of the second round, early third rounds, first couple of picks in the third round. But I question some of the physicality there. I'm gonna do Drew a solid here. The former Gator. Let's get Princely here. Let's add some tea to the pasture. That first step explosiveness is quite the sight to behold. There's some things he needs to work on. I think he needs to stop all the spinning. I think he just needs to pick his spots a little bit more.
He loves that.
He needs to pick his spots a little bit more. But I think he's got the requisite juice that you're looking for off the edge.
Yeah. No, he's super flexible too. And if truly he was like, I was playing at 264. That sapped a lot of my explosiveness. I want to play down, excuse me, at 245, 250, somewhere in there. And it's like, okay, totally. 3-4 outside, rush from that 9, do all of that stuff, and maybe just add a little bit more than the spin move. I don't know. I do think the athletic traits, kind of indicate that the high ceiling is there for him to go reach. Like he has everything to go, be able to take that. So
Yep. If I remember correctly, I think he was the young man we were talking to. Just kind of thinking, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to make an assumption that I am, but he was just talking about trying certain things, right? So obviously, when you go to Mobile, it's an audition.
Sure.
But he seemingly was approaching it. Was like, well, I was trying to work on a particular, combination, right? Inside stab with a spin. You know what I'm saying? Outside, flash my hand to kind of get the offensive lineman to open up, hit him with a spin. He said he was trying to work on a few different things, and you see it on the tape a little bit, and you saw it in Mobile where he's just like, okay, you're just kind of going to the same, but he's actually thinking a little further beyond that, right? Chaining some different moves together. And as you mentioned, the physical tools are certainly there. We just got to get him dialed in.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Folks, I mean, Packers fans, I am tempted to do it. I am tempted.
Put
I
it
will
next
be
to Edge.
honest.
Now
Yeah.
here where he's not playing the mic, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it as a weak side linebacker. Just let him just run and find the football. I'm
Yeah.
good
But
with
then
that.
Edge would have to I think step into the mic role. Maybe they're
Mhm.
wanting him to do that at some point with Quay's
Sure.
kind of fifth year looming, and you're not wondering if he's coming back. So it's possible. I know someone mentioned take Jalen Noel. I fear he's not big enough for them.
You're looking
And
for
like,
some more
is he
physicality.
kind of just Jaden Reed? Also, I do feel like
Mm.
I really like him. I think I like him more than I think he's going to finish higher than Higgins for me, truly, just from the skill set standpoint. I think if it's a second round receiver for Green Bay, I think it's Io Manor. I do.
Iron Matter.
I think
Okay.
Harris. I think Harris could be in play.
Mm.
I do. I think Harris could be
I
in
like
play.
Trey. I like Trey.
But blocker, go ball winner, stretch the field a little bit for you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he kind of checks a lot of those boxes, and the Packers love to travel out west for some guys.
That's true.
So I know nobody wants this probably, but here's the deal: you want to buy in? Go watch him against Hunter in
That's
2023.
true. That's
Guy
it.
just put a clinic on there, and
Yeah.
again, because he's so dense, he's tough to bring down in the open field, and he can take off. Like, I think we might, I think be maybe underselling Harris as a deep threat just because he's not super fast, but he obviously can get down there.
Yeah.
Io Manor
Stacks
can do the
DBs.
same thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Io Manor, I think, does that. Again, he's still a little erratic with some of the route tree, but again, if I'm sticking predictive, I have that. It's just the way he buys in as a blocker. I know Green Bay's gonna be interested in that. Would I take Harris instead? Probably, yeah. Would I tell the thresholds to shove it and take Noel? Yeah, for sure. But if I'm going to stick the predictive thing, and I think Will Johnson's within the realm of possibility based on all the intel and the experts dropping mocks, like I think this could be the one too that could happen. Now Landon's obviously there, and that's a possibility too. With a bigger edge rusher
Sure.
who's a little stiff like LVN.
A little stiff.
Is
Little
kinda
stiff.
same
A
player.
little stiff. Yeah.
But it's fine. Chargers, man, they gotta love the start with Grant, and I'm really intrigued to see the direction here.
You know, I thought the Chargers, obviously, it's hard to argue with Joe Alt, right? And then, of course, you nab McConkey, so that worked out well.
Yeah,
I was all like, look, man, it's going against everything in my body to ignore the offensive line, which again, Harbaugh, they did the right thing. There's no question about it in my mind. But Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, you know what I mean? Those two
tough.
had me really reconsidering my philosophy in terms of how to build an offense, right? Which is from the inside out, right? I do believe in that, but they had me really second guessing those things. But I think they did the right thing. I think they need more. I think they need more teeth as relates to that offense. And you mentioned Trey Harris. I think he presents the size that they need.
Sure.
I think they brought back Mike Williams, but Mike Williams is, obviously, getting in the latter parts of his career, dealt with injuries. I was never a big Quentin Johnston fan. I think anything you get from him is kind of a boon, but I really like Trey Harris quite a bit. I'm probably higher than most on him. I actually like him more along that turn, that first, second round turn. So getting him at this point in the draft, to me, represents really good value. So Trey Harris for me.
Okay. Buffalo Bills got Trey Amos.
Yeah, they did.
This is a nice start. I am really tempted. I know they like Bernard and Dorian Williams. Schwess might be a different beast for this defense though. If he's still sitting here, because
I like the idea of Williams. I thought Buffalo was better defensively this year when Williams was in the lineup. I think Milano
Yeah,
came back off the injury and he just didn't regain his previous form.
yeah,
I thought Dorian Williams was better. I think if you add Schlesinger to Williams, and you know, whatever
yeah,
that trio might be, I like that. I actually like the second level of your defense there.
yeah. Just because again, edge and defensive tackle kind of got quickly picked up. TJ Sanders could be an option for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I feel like, yeah, I feel like there's some. I feel like linebacker goes off an absolute cliff.
Mm.
I know there's some guys ranked around Schwess on the consensus boards and that. I feel like there's a significant gap when Campbell and Schwess are gone, where it's like I have some guys I like, but if you're looking for high end traits to develop into, a top flight player, like we're gonna do this. We're gonna do Schwess for the
Okay,
Bills.
I like it.
So
I like it. We went with Jalen Walker in the first. Conventional wisdom says stick with the defense,
yeah,
right?
yes,
Um,
probably.
but I do think we can sprinkle in at least one offensive player here, maybe two.
Yeah. Okay.
Interestingly enough, this is one of the few teams that doesn't need a running back, right? And then
Yes.
I believe
True.
maybe 30 to 31 other teams actually need a running back in this
Yeah.
class. Um, Jalen Noel, he's pretty damn polished, man.
Yes, he is.
I like Kyle Williams quite a bit as well.
Yeah. I was gonna mention if you didn't go Burden for the Titans,
Mm.
reuniting the fellas from Wazoo
Yeah,
could be a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
possibility.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think it's out of the
Absolutely,
question
absolutely,
when Friday
absolutely.
begins.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the board come Saturday. I think Williams is
I
going to get
can't
picked
imagine
day
so.
two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I like Jack Best quite a bit, but
That's just
we're
nice.
gonna give Leggett that opportunity to develop into that X.
Yeah.
Let's go with Noel. Let's go Jalen
Like it.
Noel.
Kind of I think he's a better version for sure, but it feels like Bryce Young sitting there. Yes, I got my guy like Mechie who can just get me these nice easy
Yeah,
buckets, and also obviously get vertical, and he definitely
sure.
does that very well too. But it's also like, man, some of the outbreakers where he's just shaking guys at the line, and that the vertical pressure and all that is so good that
Hmm.
like Bryce is gonna be able to find him on the outbreakers. Canales is gonna love the fact that he's getting open so quickly to help kind of be sometimes even a run game extension for them
Yeah,
because as you said they're loaded at running back. They're ready to roll in that regard.
I think he effectively becomes a security blanket for Bryce Young. Usually you
Yeah.
consider that in the form of a tight end, but I think Noel, his polish, the fact that
Yeah.
he's literally always open,
Yes.
will play to that.
Yeah. It is really nice to have that if you're Carolina. Again, especially you're waiting on Leggett. Coker is somebody I know a lot of people are fans of to see him kind of doing some stuff. Thielen's getting up there though. And
Mm.
if you're gonna let Leggett, kind of take over for that X, yeah, I think it's time to find some complementary pieces. I thought of Marcus Bowe for Houston. We went Ibuka. I'm gonna get a guy who I think has a chance to find a home at multiple spots. Find his best home in Jonas Savanaia. Yeah, just get somebody in the get somebody in here that can help us out. And if whichever spot he finds a home at, I think it will ultimately raise the floor for them
I
on
hear
that O
that.
line.
Yeah. Hmm.
Baltimore, who's the best player here, who shouldn't be here, if
That's
for
typically how this
Baltimore,
works, right? That's
Well,
typically how this works. It might be
have
TJ Sanders,
it
but
might,
I
yeah.
have a distinct feeling he'll be coming off the board at 62.
Well,
Um,
yeah, we don't know.
we don't know,
We
but that's
can't be
that's the
sure.
feeling.
We can't be sure about that.
That's the feeling I have.
Okay,
So
okay.
we went with Ezeraku in the first, right? I think
Yes,
that's
yes,
the
it was
direction we went
Ezeraku.
in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think I'm
Yeah.
going to go off the board a little bit here.
Okay.
Let's take a look at corner. Yeah. So obviously PFF's rankings, it's Darian Porter and then everybody else, right?
Yeah.
But I like Noah Williams more than Darian Porter. I think
Yeah.
Noah Williams is a really good player. It's
Yeah.
probably a little early, probably more likely the third round for him. But
Mm-hmm.
just the way this board is kind of unfolding, um,
Yeah. Like,
no, Oladejo is
it's
still
true.
there.
Oladejo's still
Femi,
here.
Femi is still
Yeah.
there. But
Yes.
yeah, I love Noah Williams'
I
ball
like this.
skills. I think the ability to play the football is becoming a lost art, right? We get so
Yes.
wrapped up in testing numbers and speed and arm
Yeah.
length, whatever the case may be. But at the moment of truth, a lot of these guys just struggle. They falter, right? They can't turn and get their eyes
Yeah.
on the football without falling out of phase.
Mm-hmm.
They interfere a ton. Noah Williams just seemingly finds the football, and I
Yeah.
place a premium on that. I place a premium on guys who can turn the football over, who are comfortable with the ball in the air, right? Despite maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily having upper echelon athleticism, the guys that are comfortable at the moment of truth, I tend to
Yeah.
give a little bit more value to, so credit a little bit more value to.
For
So
sure.
let's go Noah Williams.
Okay. I like it. And then you have guys like Revel who's got both somehow, and it's
Right,
pretty insane that he's just like I'll
right,
sprint with you and then I'll turn and find the ball. He's
right.
nuts. Truly, he is truly nuts. Which is awesome. Detroit, we got Michael Williams in the first. Man, they don't need a lot.
Mm.
They don't need a lot, but I think I might actually just take Ratledge here for them, just because I know that they're a little thin at guard. They might, some
Oh,
promise
oh,
from Mahog.
oh, oh, there's a name that seems to be ticking up. I'm sorry.
Oh
Sorry.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. Let's yeah. The floor is
Yeah.
yours, if you may.
Yeah. So I completely understand the Rattledge selection.
Yeah,
I kind of foreshadowed this earlier. There's a particular player that I'm not gonna let get out of the second round of this mock draft that I
okay.
am considerably higher on than the consensus, and that is Miles Frazier.
I
We
think you're
we
gonna have a
talked
great
about
opportunity here in a couple. Actually,
yes,
I think there's gonna be a
yes.
great opportunity for it. Yeah,
Yes, I think he is one of those players in this class that we're gonna. I don't know that he's gonna go as early as I think he should. Right? It
sure,
probably won't work out that way, but I
sure.
think we're gonna turn around and say, well, how did he get to day three? How did he
Yeah,
last until the 90th overall pick? The 120th overall pick, somewhere about there.
yeah,
And I'll just say this because again I got a chance to obviously watch his film and then see him up close and personal in Mobile. He was terrific. He actually was playing tackle. The focus is on Campbell and Emory Jones, right? Entering the season, throughout the
yes,
balance of the season, that's where
yes,
the focus is. Emory Jones, his star obviously has faded. They moved Emory Jones inside and moved Frazier to tackle, and Frazier looked perfectly comfortable. Not going to play him at tackle. My point is that he's a better player than Emory Jones,
yeah,
right? To me, he's a significantly better player than Emory Jones. And of course, you look back at some of those way too early mock drafts. Emory Jones is probably in the first round of those mock drafts. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah. He is. Yes, yes, he is. He might be in a few of them. Yeah,
You
it's
might be in a few
possible.
of them. So
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Miles Frazier. Definitely a big fan of Miles Frazier.
Yep.
But if you do nothing else, check out the Ole Miss tape, LSU versus Ole Miss, and when he
So
was
true.
matched up with Walter Nolan. Check that out.
There you go.
All right.
That's
That will tell
That's
the
some
story.
homework for the chat right there.
That will tell the
Some
story
nice
of
homework.
Miles Frazier. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. That being said, we're gonna take Rattlers because I want to make sure Juice is the one who gets to take
There you go. I
Miles
appreciate
Frazier
you.
there. But
Appreciate
yeah,
you.
Detroit's in some weird spots where it's kind of like, what do they actually like need a ton? I mean, Jared Wilson could be interesting here as well. Hey, is Ragnow going to be able to hang on with all those injuries for a long time? Of like, hey, yeah, we can get the successor, kind of like what Philly did, right? Of kind of like, yeah, let's get Jurgens in here, make sure
Yeah.
he's learning under the tutelage of Kelsey, and when he's ready to go, he's ready to go. Wouldn't
Right.
rule that out actually as a possibility either.
Makes sense. What did we do with the Commanders in the first? No, they didn't have
Morrison.
a first round. Yeah, that's right.
Morrison.
Ben Mo. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Good. That makes this easy. Let's go with Miles Frazier.
There we go. I was wondering if he was going to be a commander or a chief.
Or a chief, right?
I wasn't sure which
yeah.
one was going to was going to come to fruition there, but I like it. I like it. Add a little bit of your own flavor to the end of this. Well, you've left me potentially TJ Sanders if I want to go this
there
direction.
You go. If you'd like to.
The one thing that's calling to me is I don't think he makes it out of round 2.
Really?
I don't hate it. Does.
I don't hate it, man. That release package is serious.
And that's the thing, right? And he's explosive. And what do the Bills need? A living, breathing person on the boundary for this team.
Right?
Anybody.
Exactly.
They're just handing out flyers like, hey, does anybody here play the boundary? And it's like Kyle Williams is like standing up going, I can. It'd be really funny if they took Besh or like somebody like that of like, hey, yeah, look at this. And it's like, what are you doing? You got 5 slot receivers now. But yeah, let's do this. I think I want to get him into the second round as well. I want to make sure he's.
I like it
because I really like it. I'm a big fan.
He checks that box though, as you mentioned. Yeah. They desperately need a guy who can win on the boundary, right? Yes. They have a ton of slot receivers, as you've mentioned. Mm-hmm. And you know, this past season, you know, so you mentioned it 2 years ago, Cam Ward, you know, we're vertical. This year, you got to see, I think, a little bit more of what he's capable of doing at every level of the field. So I like Kyle Williams quite a bit.
And what I do like is Buffalo's got the capital to be like, yeah, we can try this, right? And maybe Schlesinger is probably not part of the plan if they try it, right? They maybe just take Sanders at 56, and that's totally fine if that's the approach. But they are offered a chance to take a swing at outside receiver if they like one because they can address the defense with their first 2 selections.
Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I probably should go offensive line here. I probably should.
Could, but got Maxwell for them.
Maxwell Harrison.
Glad we got him in the first because I think from everything that it seems like it's going to happen tomorrow night.
Gotcha.
Or for those on the East Coast, of course, tonight. You know, perhaps. So
Of course, Kansas City would like to, you know, add a back here. But again, I think there's a lot of depth. I think there's a lot of depth at the running back position.
The ultimate battering ram potentially in play, you know? My goodness.
Right. So at receiver, again, perhaps a little bit of a curveball here. You're gonna feel Worthy, right? You know, he's kind of your Swiss Army knife in terms of how you move him around. Obviously, you're gonna stretch the field. Your slot effectively is Rashee Rice, you know, your big slot, right? You like what he does after the catch.
Yes, definitely.
I think you need an X. And I think a guy that's capable of playing the X, and maybe not necessarily want him to live there, is Jack Besh, right? Catches everything, right? Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about, aside from obviously the glaring issue up front along the offensive line, I think TJ Sanders certainly to bolster that defensive line. Would be in consideration as well. But just guys who are going to be consistent. You know, they've missed on a number of some of these young prospects at the receiving position. I think they've obviously hit with Xavier Worthy, and you know, Rashee Rice gets his head on straight. I think Jack Besh, you drop him in that mix, and you know, an aging Kelsey is less of a concern. For sure. You know what I'm saying? Besh is another one of those types who can make plays at every level of the field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Definitely. Consistency. And he's well put together. We're talking 6'1", about 212, 213, right? So there's some physicality to his game. Does a good job of creating separation at the top of his route. Polish. You know, it was interesting to see that, you know, as I believe a freshman, he led the LSU team that had Neighbors and
Booty, Thomas,
and Thomas in receptions and yards, you know, which is insane. Just
for all those early breakout folks, there it is.
There it is.
You wanted it, you got it right there.
There it is. I think that'd be hell having to deal with those 3 receivers here. So let's go in that direction.
Yeah, and and you saw the shift. I'll make the pick. You saw the shift from predominantly slot to 75% of the snaps out wide, and it didn't look uncomfortable. Now he is certainly one of the guys who likes to play physical, and so that at times can be to the detriment of running the route a little bit. However,
Sure.
when you watch him sometimes on those glance routes of that diamond release, combined with the well-timed swipe, that's a really good starting point to look at, like, okay, like he can handle himself on the boundary. And again, he's got impressive speed cuts, and then that transition from receiver to ball carrier, some of that acceleration he has, and obviously the toughness, right? He refuses to be brought down when the ball's in his hands. Call me crazy. You can play him out wide, but also, Kelsey getting up there in age, attach him to the line a little bit, do the Puka thing a little bit.
Listen, I have no doubts in my mind Andy Reid will figure it out. I have no doubts in my mind that he will figure out how to deploy the weapons in this offense. So I just want guys who can catch the football on a consistent basis.
For sure.
When it hits them in the hands, they actually secure the catch.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. Philly got rid of Gardner Johnson, didn't they? Did they bring in anybody? Did they bring in anyone?
Let me check real quick.
Okay. Because it would be so Philly of like, wow, look at the top player here that's just sitting on this board, and just like, hey, yeah, we'll do that.
Let's see.
Because they have Blankenship.
Sidney Brown's coming off the injury.
That's right.
Let's see. So yeah, those are your two starters. They brought in Lewis Seen as well.
Okay.
No, I think safety is definitely in play.
Just trying to make sure I'm not missing anybody here, and I don't think I am. Well,
I like Chris Paul here too.
Well,
I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. It makes
Stewart and Sanders. Yeah, no. Yeah. I'll preface this. I would love to add Winston to the secondary, because I think that's a major problem if you're adding him there. But also just Sanders, and then Stewart can happily stay away as far away from the ball and tee off as he would like. There we go. And there's your Milton Williams replacement.
There you have it.
Oof.
Yeah,
that's some tough stuff for everybody else. For the Eagles, just going, yeah, we lost Sweat and Milton Williams. We'll take Stewart and Sanders, but that's what they do.
That's what they do. That's the Howie.
I
actually considered Winston to the Chiefs as well. I did.
Oh yeah, because they lost Reed and Brian Cook. Not quite maybe what they were hoping for. Yeah. That's Yeah, it could be four safeties, by the top 55-ish picks, and then you're kind of like, yep, those are the four guys that expected to go at that point. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, there we go. 2 rounds. I think a lot of excellent discussion.
Absolutely.
We got folks like Smitty in the comments appreciating that Juice was joining for this one.
Appreciate you,
because I remember Juice got to hop in during one of our day 2 streams on this channel, and obviously Smitty was there as well. But it was I remember everybody commenting of how awesome Juice was, adding so much value to the conversation, and I'm so glad that we were able to make this work, because this was a lot of fun.
Likewise, absolutely. We got to make it a more consistent, to do. I enjoyed it completely. Generally speaking, I'm hosting. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And Drew and Headley are kind of flanking me, and they're giving the real color. So it's nice to kind of take a step back, and just talk ball, man. So appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity. Really enjoyed it.
I know we've gone a long time, folks. I appreciate everybody sticking around. If you want to hit that thumbs up on the way out, perhaps. I want to pick your brain really quick before we get out of here. If there's any, maybe you had a certain pick, or just maybe a team that you liked for this one that you like. I like how this came together. Before we set off.
I think what you did with Dallas is
a good time.
Ideal. I think it's absolutely ideal. The Bears are in a very unique situation.
Yes.
Right? They're able to go effectively best player available, 10th overall.
Yep.
They get the coveted tailback in this class.
Yeah.
And then you add, a high floor in with both Connerly and Pierce, right?
Yes.
There's clearly some warts. There's clearly some warts, some concerns. But again, I don't know that they're going to be thrust into a situation where they have to contribute a ton. So
Yes.
I like that. I like that for the future prospects there. Plus, the Chicago can get aggressive, right? With those 2 second-round picks, they can get aggressive,
For
move up.
sure.
But just considering how the board kind of unfolded, I like that. You started it off with the Raiders as it relates to getting Will
Oh
Campbell,
yeah, that's right.
and
Campbell
then we
plus.
just append Amari and Hampton to that. So as you mentioned, that kind of gives Hampton a nice landing spot, a nice floor in terms of what's
Yes.
already in front of him. I think there was some really good work. Siobhan Ravel, Mason Graham to the Jaguars makes a ton of sense.
Yes. Yes.
Of course, any team that gets Travis Hunter is obviously, in my opinion, headed in the right direction. And
Yeah.
then you tag on Donovan Jackson, who could very
Right.
well come off the board in the first 32 picks. You take him at the top of the second. So nice boost to the offense. And then obviously with Hunter's ability to play on both sides of the ball, you kind of two birds with one stone there. So yeah, man, I thought there were several teams, most of the teams here. I don't know that there's any team that we didn't help considerably.
Yeah.
Right.
I think two of them that I really, really liked, and I think we got to pick for both of them for each.
Yeah.
The Jets and the Niners, right? We go Membu for the Jets and then Simmons, and then we come back with Tyleek and Darius Alexander. Just an awesome investment in the trenches for those two teams. For one team kind of getting up off the mat that they've been on for a while in New York, and then the other team that just kind of, maybe got
trying to keep the window open.
Yeah, we're trying to keep the window open. And the sugar high hit them a little bit on the window,
and
then
they're crashing.
Like, no, we're back. We're back. We are so back.
We got some electrolytes now, so we're good.
I feel like I would really like to see that from those two, and Smitty pointing out Warren and Watts for the Colts, I think is a lot of fun as well. Again, maybe not the surplus value in terms of the positions you would take, but hard to argue with the talent taken, because I feel like everybody I talk to wants Xavier Watts in the second round at safety. They're like, yeah, we can't. We think we're picking too early for Starks and Emenwari, but we want Watts. And I feel like everybody that I talk to, the Jets, the Niners, Colts, Bengals, of like so many people, like, can we please get Xavier Watts in the second? It's like only one team's going to get him. So I think it could be a very much maybe they're moving up for like the Eagles did for the Gene situation of like teams are going to really start to get after it for someone like Watts. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. No Milroe, no Dart at all in this one. And I think that probably won't reflect what happens in the next 2 days.
Probably not.
but I think it was tough. I think there's a lot of talk about the Rams, thinking about succession plans, and that would be something that maybe they would think about. The one team that I would maybe come back to is Seattle, who has a lot of picks. Right.
Yes.
If they feel like Darnold when he's kind of set up as like almost a 1 year-ish and change type of deal.
Let's see.
Where it's
Let's
like,
find out.
We'll find out. But also we have 5 picks in the first, 82?
Right.
Or something like that. For sure, 85.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, we could probably just take a swing if we wanted to there with no issue. And it wouldn't feel like we're quote unquote out of line relative to what the fan base is hoping for, right? And maybe feel more like a Jalen Hurts situation rather than, even though it worked out a Jordan Love one, I guess. But that would be interesting for Seattle. But this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do this one. Hopefully Packers fans are okay with Will Johnson and Io Manor. But yeah.
Good stuff.
Real quick, you want to again plug the channel and all that on the way out, because as we know, 2025 process is about to come to a close, but 2026 is going to get us rolling. A lot of Arch Manning. Is he going to declare or not talk? Juice and I are going to have our rant about safeties with Caleb Downs, I'm sure, because that's just how it goes. But going to be fun. But yeah, definitely plug the channel, all that on the way out here.
Certainly. Again, thank you, Jake. Thank you for this opportunity. It was great. I had a ton of fun. Had a ton of fun working through this 2-round mock draft with you. Couch Potato General Manager, CPGM. We've been around for a while. We've been around for a while. Again, you probably, if you have seen us, it's probably via the Senior Bowl coverage with the one-on-ones, whether it be the offensive line, defensive line, receiver, and DBs, receiver, tight ends, DBs. But literally year-round NFL draft coverage. Jake mentioned it in terms of kind of what we're looking at over the course of the next several weeks. Obviously, I think everybody will be kind of doing their own stream thing. Hopefully, we could do a cameo like we did in the past, do a cameo on one another's streams over the course of the draft. We then take a couple of weeks to kind of recharge our batteries, and then it's off to the 2026, right? The wheels keep turning. The wheels keep turning. So be sure to check us out. Again, that's Couch Potato General Manager.
Yeah, and I think what's a lot of fun is between us maybe two different approaches, which will be fun for you want different pieces of content after the draft. You'll be able to have both. You want to dip your toes in 2026, you should head over there. You want maybe some rookie reviews. Might be taking a look at Harrison and Mitchell and Bowers a little bit here over the coming weeks and months as we kind of trend toward the season. So you're going to have between the two of us a lot of awesome stuff. And truly, if you haven't seen the Couch Potato General Manager channel and go back through how detailed all their rankings shows are when they do those and the really measured approach to all their team mock drafts, you can tell the work is being put in. So make sure you're subscribing over there because you guys are live for Thursday, Friday, right? That's the plan?
Definitely. Yeah. We'll see about Saturday.
That's always the difficult
Thursday,
one.
Friday.
Marathon.
Yeah.
And that's the best part for those who are viewers. You got a lot of options. I know Smitty's in the comments and has been. He does the fun mid Kuiper bit on Thursdays, which is a lot of fun. So if you got 3 tabs open, you can get a lot of great analysis tomorrow night. That's the great part about YouTube.
Dual monitor situation.
You don't need to have 3 TVs for 3 channels, right? You can put together your own red zone if you want when the draft gets started. But again, thank you all in the comments so much. This was a very active chat too, which was a lot of fun and Dana and Smitty and others who are fans of other teams. It was great to see them come in and offer their thoughts on all the picks tonight. So again, thank you so much. Thumbs up on the way out. Make sure you've got a lot of places to watch tomorrow night when the draft kicks off. It's awesome that it's in Green Bay. And again, thank you and good night. One more sleep, folks, until we're underway. It is truly just about here. So good night, everybody. Thank you again so much.